A man is thrown to the floor with force as a stern figure standing beside a woman condemns him, calling him a disgrace. They question his granted profession as producer and declare he is no longer needed in the house. 2 years later, a horse-drawn wagon travels through a mountainous, forested landscape. Inside, a young man named Yahello Belvalit is informed by the driver that they are almost at their destination. The driver greets Yahello warmly, recognizing him as the distinguished eldest son of the Belvalit family. Yahello responds confidently about his driving skills, but reveals he was exiled from the Belvalit family, shocking the driver. Yahello reflects on his noble lineage. The Belvalats are an elite family producing outstanding knights in the kingdom of Guardia. His father, Leonis, is a dark knight and the kingdom's knight commander, while his mother, Irina, holds the powerful profession of Reaper's envoy. In this world, everyone receives a profession from the gods at 18, shaping their life path. As the eldest son, Yahello was expected to be the heir and achieve greatness, but his profession is about to be revealed by a solemn figure reading from a document. The word producer is revealed as Yahello's profession, one he has never even heard of before. Shocked, he calls out to his father and mother, but their faces are obscured, and he realizes his days of torment have begun. Yahello is thrown to the floor and scolded harshly for leaving his room. Despite pleading that no food has been brought for days, after the door slams shut, he apologizes quietly. He explains that with a more suitable airborne, he was cast aside and honorably exiled to a distant frontier. Meanwhile, his younger brother Dalmas receives the combat-based profession Knight of Thunder 2 years later. Sitting in the back of a wagon, Yahello reflects that he has nothing to do with the Belvalit family anymore. He thought he was hired by a noble, but it turned out to be a dud. Smiling confidently, he says with his skills, he doesn't need a noble's backing and now he is just Yahello. The wagon will turn as they arrive at their destination. Yahello thanks the driver and steps down, approaching a large, ivy-covered house. He declares this is the house where he will live starting today, a faint, determined smile crossing his lips. Yahello beams with joy, clenching his fist as he declares this place perfect. He cheers loudly, celebrating freedom in a remote land with no people in sight, feeling completely free from everything. Standing before the ivy-covered house, he proclaims his new life starts here. With a bright smile, he opens the door, eager to see how the inside looks. A sudden sound catches his attention, making him pause with a curious expression. Inside, he marvels at the great ventilation and wide open space. Unable to believe he gets to live here, determined, he vows to tidy up a place to sleep for now. Relaxing on a couch, he sighs in relief, finally able to settle down after confinement. He recalls he wasn't allowed to do anything before and plans to set up a base and food next, checking his status, skills, and equipment. Lying back on the couch, he decides to check if he has any useful skills. The skill list reveals only fishing and mining at level 1. Excited, he resolves to try them out. Gripping a fishing rod, he feels a bite and eagerly pulls it in. He reels in a big catch, thrilled by the success. Yet, he wonders how to eat the fish, realizing he has no cooking experience. Squatting by a bucket of fish, he questions the usefulness of his skills. With determination, he sharpens a knife and proudly declares he did it. Having unlocked the butcher skill derived from fishing, he feels his food problem is solved for now and hopes to earn money by mining valuable ores. He begins searching for ores using his mining skill. While mining, he discovers a mineral called Greshant ore. He learns it is widely used in accessories, weapons, and armor, though its raw form sells for little. Considering the butcher skill from fishing, he suspects mining might have a similar derived skill. He confirms the new skill. Refine level 1 derived from mining. Excited, he declares it perfect as flames swirl around his hand. Refining the ore later in the nearby town of Central Rua, a 3-hour walk from his house, he holds up the purified ore, told it will fetch a great price. The merchant thanks him and invites him to sell again anytime. Overjoyed, he clutches a bag of money, smiling brightly at home. He enjoys a lavish meal, declaring it the most luxurious he's had in 2 years. He eagerly digs in, savoring every bite. The shabby but usable house and the plentiful food show his improved life. He marvels at how convenient the producer's skill is. Eliminating worries about food or money, he happily eats, thinking how perfect everything is. But a hint of concern crosses his face as he looks around the room. Half a month later, after constant mining, he has saved a good amount of money and decides to start fixing up the yard. In the town of Central Rua, he buys herbicide and considers buying a horse to ease the tiring walks. While tending to the horse, he realizes the workload is too much for one person and wonders if he might need help. Noticing someone approaching, a man with a mustache and glasses eyes the young man and declares him perfect because he looks shady. The young man hesitates but agrees. The man grabs him, insisting he at least hear him out. The young man protests, but the man urges him to come along, welcoming him inside. Inside, the man welcomes the young man to a slave trading house, showcasing caged slaves. The young man thinks about needing help but not wanting to own slaves. The man asks what kind of slave he wants, but the young man clarifies he only wants help around the house, not a slave. The man excitedly promises to show the right candidates. Telling him to wait, the young man mutters "boy" nervously. The young man spots a beautiful girl in a cage and is struck by her appearance. The girl notices him staring and warns him not to look if he doesn't plan to buy. The young man stammers an apology, overwhelmed by her beauty. The girl calls him strange for apologizing to a slave. The young man insists the girl, Sylvia, is beautiful, but the girl scoffs, saying Sylvia only looks good and is just a decoration for a rich man's mansion. Other slaves mock the idea of being a display slave. The man with the mustache returns, apologizing for the wait, and asks about Sylvia, leading the young man to mention her name. The man explains that Sylvia has been in their shop for a long time but keeps getting bought and returned because she talks back despite being meant as a decorative slave. This causes problems for the shop. The young man reacts with surprise when the man suggests they may need to dispose of her soon. The man with the mustache coldly states that merchandise that doesn't sell must be disposed of, but the young man firmly refuses, rejecting the idea of throwing someone away just for being useless. The woman looks uneasy but says, "Anyway, leaving that aside, no." The young man decisively declares he will take Sylvia. Shocking the man with the mustache, the man questions if he's sure, noting they have plenty of more obedient slaves. But the young man insists it's fine. He condemns the idea of discarding someone for being useless. Sylvia remains silent, her expression unreadable. Outside the shop, the young man thanks the man for the purchase and greets Sylvia warmly. Calling her by name, Sylvia stands silently, her eyes shaded, and the young man awkwardly suggests they head home for now. A horse nearby waits as they prepare to leave. Walking beside the horse with Sylvia seated on it, the young man forces a nervous smile. Feeling awkward, Sylvia thinks to herself that she didn't need his pity, maintaining a distant demeanor as they move forward together. She warns he'll end up like all her previous owners, only kind until they grow bored of her. He grips his vest, replying he'd rather die in a cage than feel that way again. He reflects quietly, acknowledging he was locked up until recently too. Memories flood back of painful days alone. Locked in his room without food, scolded harshly. Despite it all, he's grateful to have survived. He smiles warmly, reaching out, saying a new world awaits beyond those walls. His words strike her deeply, and she listens intently as he assures her the same hope applies to her. Sylvia stammers, struggling to find words, clearly unsettled by the situation. She admits it's that kind of thing that troubles her. The young man smiles gently, assuring her he didn't buy her out of pity as she rides the horse. He expresses his belief in her strength and spirit, promising she'll be a companion who helps protect their home. Sylvia looks surprised but listens carefully. She doubts words are easy to say, but he insists he'll work hard to earn her trust. A soft blush spreads across Sylvia's face as she processes his sincerity. The young man announces they've arrived at their destination. He cheerfully welcomes her to his home, but Sylvia reacts with shock and hesitation. They stand before a large, ivy-covered mansion, and she mutters that the cage might have been better. The young man responds with a surprise. As they face this new chapter together, the grand house stands serene under a sky where birds fly. He explains he leaves early for work and asks her to handle the housework. She wonders if cooking is first, and he cheers at her readiness. She smiles confidently, promising to take care of it, which impresses him as reliable. She presents a small dish with a calm, focused expression. He nervously apologizes, admitting his poor cooking skills and vows to improve. She reassures him not to worry, valuing taste over appearance. Though she notes the flavor is unique, he happily tastes it, clearly pleased. She reflects that everyone makes mistakes sometimes. He prepares to leave. She warmly wishes him a safe day, calling him Master Eichel. He asks if she's tired or hasn't been sleeping well, but she insists she's fine and tells him to just call her Eichel. She winces, cutting herself while slicing vegetables, and grimaces quietly. Shadows fall across her face as she struggles to steady herself. Determined, she reminds herself to pull herself together, though she worries Eichel might change his mind about her being his companion. Suddenly, a dish crashes to the floor, shattering loudly. She gasps in shock as a concerned young man rushes in. Asking if she's okay, she apologizes, distressed over breaking an important dish again, fearing he'll be fed up with her this time. The young man kneels beside her, gently asking if she's hurt and apologizing for making her overwork. She looks surprised as he acknowledges her hard work despite her poor cooking skills. He offers to help her figure things out together, showing a cookbook and notes. With a warm smile, he encourages her not to keep everything to herself and to talk to him about anything. He reminds her they are companions, she quietly agrees, and he suggests they try following the recipe properly this time, promising to help her. He announces the dishes are done with a bright smile, catching her attention. She holds a plate, startled. As he says he'll return to his room now, she quietly asks him to wait a moment. He cheerfully invites her to eat together, but she insists slaves do not share meals with their masters, calling it common sense. He remains upbeat. While she struggles with her feelings, blushing and tense, he smiles warmly, trying to ease the mood. They sit across from each other at a long dining table in a grand mansion. He wonders if she's gotten used to living there yet. Noting the mansion's spaciousness, she responds quietly, hesitant. He thinks the air feels heavy and considers bringing up something cheerful, though he suspects she'd hate discussing her past. She comments that the mansion is a bit worn down but cozier than flashy estates. Though he warns there's a limit to how much she can say. They share a light laugh, breaking the tension. As he reaches for his food, he pauses, caught off guard by something. She admits this might be the most fun she's ever had, and he beams, glad to see her smile as he prepares to leave. He mentions heading up the back mountain to mine some ore. She calls after him, asking him to wait and take something with him. She hands him a lunchbox, worried he'll get hungry. He thanks her cheerfully, saying he's improved a little. She stammers, adding a wish for him to have a safe day. She calls out his name urgently, and he responds with a bright smile, announcing he's off. Later, he shows her the pile of ore they've mined, noting it should bring in a fair bit of money. He plans to sell it tomorrow and invites her to come along, surprising her with the offer. He cheerfully suggests taking a break tomorrow, praising how hard she's been working. The scene shifts to the city of St. Luria the next day. He offers to buy the carriage and asks her to handle the shopping, which she agrees to. She nervously holds a bundle of money, worried it might be too much. He reassures her she can keep whatever is left over. She doubts the amount is enough to be a salary, questioning if this is really not much. Later, she carries a list, finishing the last item they were asked to buy, thanking the shopkeeper. She admires a cute new product on display, feeling conflicted because the money came from him. She insists she's useless and doesn't deserve to buy such things. But he confidently chooses the item, surprising her. The shopkeeper thanks them for the purchase, and she calls out his name in shock. She clutches a bag, overwhelmed that she doesn't deserve such a lovely gift. He reminds her she's earned at least this much by helping him every day. Blushing, she thanks him sincerely, and he smiles, sure the gift will suit her perfectly. They realize the crowd blocks their path back to the main road. The young man suggests heading back since shopping is done, but the woman points out they can't get through the crowd. A third woman excitedly urges them to look at something happening nearby, catching their attention. They spot a man on horseback, recognized as Sir Dalmas, the Knight Commander of Guardia, returning victorious. The young man is surprised, realizing Dalmas has become a Knight Commander and was granted the class Heaven's Thunder Swordsman. The young man decides they should leave before Dalmas notices them, warning that getting involved with his brother will only cause trouble. As they prepare to leave, the young man spots Aishel nearby. Dalmas greets him, commenting that he looks healthy and has been doing all right. Dalmas suddenly sneers, telling the young man he should have died already and accuses him of disgracing the Belbalat family. The young man is left speechless, while the woman beside him says it's the truth and that he has nothing to say back. A woman asks Sir Dalmas if the man with them is someone he knows. Dalmas dismissively calls him a worthless commoner. The man recalls how Aishel was always the one who gently cared for him when he was hurt. Aishel looks tense and worried, while the man appears conflicted. Aishel suddenly pleads for Sylvia to wait, refusing to allow Dalmas to insult the man despite his rank as Knight Commander. She passionately defends Lord Aishel's kindness and nobility, surprising the man beside her. Dalmas demands Aishel take back her words, mocking the arrogance of a mere slave. He warns her of the consequences for defying a noble, but Aishel calmly states she understands and is prepared for whatever comes. Dalmas grips his sword tightly, glaring down at her. The man commands Dalmas to stop, declaring that a slave's crime is the master's responsibility. He reflects on how Sylvia risked her life to defend him. Yet he feels conflicted, resolute. He refuses to cower before Dalmas, standing firm with Aishel behind him as Dalmas remains seated on his horse, sword pointed at him. The Knight Commander taunts the young man, accusing him of being disgraceful for protecting a slave and threatening to end it quickly. The young man firmly replies that he will die in her place. Aishel looks tense and worried as the knight raises his sword. The young man shouts her name with determination, while Aishel clutches her chest in concern. Tears well up in Aishel's eyes, her expression trembling with emotion. The knight sneers, declaring the young man unworthy of staining his blade. The young man calmly tells Aishel to move on, standing resolute beside her. The young man catches his breath and calls out to Aishel, who urgently questions why he would act so recklessly, insisting slaves can always be replaced. He answers that risking his life for hers is only natural. Aishel looks shocked and conflicted by his words. The young man reaches out his hand, smiling warmly and saying they are companions. Aishel stares at his outstretched hand, tears streaming down her face as she realizes no one has ever risked their life for her before. She quietly acknowledges this truth, overwhelmed by the moment. Tears stream down her face as she smiles warmly, affirming with a heartfelt, "Yeah." She reaches out her hand, urging, "Let's go home, to our home." The scene shifts to a peaceful house, symbolizing a new beginning. Inside, she surveys a table laden with food, pondering companions and her own thoughts. Worried she might have prepared too much, she admits getting carried away thinking about Aishel. Her expression shifts to determination as she resolves to devote herself forever to the one who risked his life for her. She cheerfully calls out, "I'm home," embracing the promise of forever. A cheerful welcome greets two men entering the room. One introduces the other as their new companion. Bickle, shock and disbelief ripple through her as she exclaims, "Eh?" While the house stands quietly outside, underscored by the question, "Already cheating? Who is that man?" A new member, Bickle, suddenly appears, introducing himself with a warm smile and promising to be in their care starting today. The young man beams with determination, ready to do his best, while Aishel reacts with surprise and concern, shouting for him to hold on a minute. A few hours earlier, Aishel scolds the young man for forgetting to buy weed killer. He explains that although it's his duty, he can't keep spreading weed killer every time he tends the garden because it's endless. He worries about putting more burden on Sylvia and insists he has to earn a living. A passerby notices his trouble and comments on it. The slave merchant, a rotund man with a top hat and monocle, confronts the young man, noting his fondness for Sylvia. He acknowledges Sylvia's progress with cooking and housework but points out that the number of weed killers suggests they live in a very large mansion. He questions whether the two of them can manage cleaning and gardening alone and hints at wanting more help. The merchant then offers a special slave just for the young man, promising gardening, farm work, and anything else needed at a bargain price. Bickle appears again, smiling confidently. The young man protests that he only does gardening, but the merchant cuts him off sharply, accusing him of being the reason no one sells to him. The slave merchant suddenly interrupts, boasting about a special slave he only offers to his best customers. The young man nervously agrees to take care of the new slave at home. The merchant thanks him for the purchase. The new slave, Bickle, nervously greets Master Aishel, promising to do his best. Aishel warmly tells Bickle that from today he's not a slave but a comrade, and Bickle happily accepts the new title. Sylvia remarks that Aishel isn't good at negotiating, but Aishel cheerfully accepts the situation, noting they now have more comrades despite being shorthanded. He insists he'll do his best, sparkling with determination. Aishel recalls being alone with Sylvia, who looks a bit shy but supportive. He reveals she's a slave just like Aishel, and that here slavery doesn't matter because everyone is equal. Aishel is surprised by this. Sylvia says it's late and she'll leave the rest to him from tomorrow. Aishel asks where she's going, and she replies that slaves are supposed to sleep outside. Aishel starts to protest about having a private room, but Sylvia interrupts, telling him to choose any room he likes. She insists that since he's come to her mansion, he's an equal comrade and she can't let him sleep outside. He awkwardly laughs, trying to adjust to his new surroundings. While she reassures him he'll get used to it soon, he reflects on arriving at a strange mansion. Hearing her call him a master who doesn't understand the common sense of a slave, she comments on his strange way of thinking and spending money, and he admits he's a peculiar person. They agree on room assignments and say goodnight as the mansion settles into darkness. She calls him a strange master, and he touches his cheek sheepishly. She explains that's just how he is and that she was surprised too. He wonders what he'll do tomorrow, noting the mansion is large and dilapidated. She reminds him he calls slaves comrades, marking him as an eccentric. He looks thoughtful, pausing before continuing. She tearfully recalls being saved by Aishel, who took her in when she was about to be discarded and protected her with his life. The memory of that moment shines brightly, emphasizing the depth of his kindness and sacrifice. She continues, saying no other master is like Aishel, a person who accepts her for who she is. He quietly declares his desire to be useful to Aishel, not as a slave but as a comrade, addressing her as Lady Sylvia with sincere resolve. He vows to do his best and work in a way that matches the treatment he's received, apologizing if he falls short. Despite being sold, he was warmly welcomed. As he greets Bickle with a yawn, the mansion stands quietly outside. Bickle, covered in dirt and scratches, explains he was removing weeds from the overgrown garden. The other man asks what's wrong, But Bickle insists it's just because he's dirty. The younger man thanks him warmly for his hard work. The praise surprises Bickle, who has never seen a master commend a slave before. He reflects on being treated as an equal and given a room, calling the master a truly strange person. The two share a firm handshake, each resolved to follow the other. Suddenly, a cheerful voice calls them to breakfast, and Bickle looks on in surprise at the towering stack of pancakes, questioning the amount as they head inside together. Bickle, dirt-smudged and tired, is gently reminded that he must eat since he's been working all morning. He agrees with a smile, grateful that Lady Sylvia prepared breakfast for them. Aishel is urged to work hard today as well, determined not to lose to anyone after everyone's efforts since morning. The trio gathers at the table, cheerfully inviting each other to eat. The towering stack of pancakes surprises Bickle, but the mood remains light and warm. After finishing their meal, Aishel lists his tasks for the day. Gardening, cleaning, and more. Bickle confidently claims responsibility for the garden, promising to make it the best in the country. Sylvia takes charge of the housework and cooking, encouraging them to look forward to the exquisite cuisine. United in spirit, the three share a moment of resolve and gratitude for their dependable comrades. Aishel raises his fist in determination, rallying everyone to give their best effort. Aishel, Sylvia, and Bickle each engage in their tasks. Aishel fishing by the water, Sylvia sweeping indoors, and Bickle tending the garden. A wooden barrel reveals 2 large fish, prompting Aishel to cheer about fish dishes for dinner, suggesting sashimi, simmered fish, or meuniere. A sudden alert from a device catches his attention. She notices a new skill has been added and wonders when it happened. He reflects that he hasn't defeated monsters or done anything special to gain skills, speculating that using production skills more might unlock new ones. Excited, he marvels at this discovery while recalling his younger self fishing energetically. Returning home with the day's catch, Aishel is greeted warmly. Sylvia reminds him to buy vegetables tomorrow, but Bickle and Sylvia both look puzzled when Aishel insists there's no need for that. They question what he means, clearly confused by his statement. Aishel confidently declares he'll make the vegetables himself from the field, announcing a sudden new skill. A sudden declaration of cultivation, Sylvia and Bickle react with shock and disbelief, stunned by his bold plan to support a self-sufficient, slow life. Aishel announces his plan to try farming with Bickle, aiming to make a field. Sylvia and Bickle react with surprise and curiosity. Bickle confirms his farming experience, revealing he comes from a farming family. Aishel eagerly asks him to teach how to make the field immediately, and Bickle agrees enthusiastically. Bickle is shocked that Aishel wants to start right now, but Aishel confidently insists. Sylvia watches with a worried expression as the two prepare to begin. The scene shifts to the exterior of their home, signaling the start of their farming effort. The two stand before a fenced-off patch of land. Agreeing the space is sufficient, Bickle asks what they should do first, then explains they need to dig up the ground. The tools for digging are shown, ready for use. Both begin digging the soil with shovels, working side by side. Bickle explains the next step will be to cultivate the soil with a hoe, demonstrating the process. The freshly turned earth shows their progress as they start their farming venture. They work hard, digging the soil with shovels, sweat dripping as they push through the effort. One remarks that making a field is a lot of work, but the other encourages him, saying they're about halfway done. The younger one brightens with renewed energy. Standing back, they admire the freshly turned earth, agreeing it's starting to look like a field. They acknowledge more steps remain before sowing seeds. The older man asks what to do next and suggests sprinkling lime to help vegetables grow. The younger one wonders if they even have any lime. The younger man spots a nearby wooden warehouse and investigates. Inside, sacks filled with chunks of limestone are found. He asks if they can use this limestone, noting it seems to have been stored there originally. The older man agrees enthusiastically, and they decide to crush and spread it on the soil. A heavy stone crashes down, breaking into pieces as they prepare the lime. The younger man scatters the crushed limestone across the field while the other holds a bucket. They discuss adding leaf mold next to enrich the soil before sowing seeds. The younger one volunteers to fetch leaf mold from the back mountain, ready to continue their farming efforts. A young man digs into the earth while another pushes a wheelbarrow filled with leaves. The sky above is scattered with flying birds. The two share a quiet moment as they prepare the soil together. They step back to admire the freshly furrowed rows of soil. One raises his arms in triumph. The other praises the good work. As night falls, they agree to continue their efforts tomorrow. The young man kneels by the soil, sprinkling glowing particles from his hand. He smiles, pleased with the progress. He predicts that everyone will be surprised by the next day's results. As a house stands quietly under the sky, the young man announces his plan to buy seeds, prompting a question about weeds. He reassures that it's fine and confidently gestures with glowing hands, inviting the other to watch as he prepares to sow the seeds. The young man extends his hands, releasing a glowing magic that swiftly spreads through the garden. The vegetables instantly begin to grow and flourish, astonishing the other man, who exclaims in shock. The vegetables rapidly transform into fully grown produce in an instant, leaving both men amazed by the sudden growth. One questions the miraculous change as they both kneel to admire the thriving crops. The young man explains they are witnessing the power of a new cultivation skill he acquired recently. The other man realizes this is why they were urged to create the field. Marveling at the skill's effectiveness, they eagerly prepare to harvest the abundant vegetables. Back indoors, the young man happily presents baskets full of freshly harvested vegetables, surprising the woman with how quickly the work was completed. He credits Bickle's help and his new skill for the success. While she notes they won't need to worry about vegetables for a while, he plans to store leftovers in a magic refrigerator that preserves food with regular magic replenishment. The woman cheers them on, praising their hard work and declaring tonight a feast. They gather around a table laden with food and drinks, laughing and celebrating their success. Outside, the mansion stands quietly under the sky. Inside, the man asks Sylvia and Bickle what's wrong. Sylvia looks uneasy, and the young man responds with a hesitant question. The woman explains she wanted a flower garden to complement the splendid field they made. But the young man frowns, finding the mansion barren despite its size. The young man crosses his arms, listing complaints about the shabby gate and fence, wanting them fixed and made stylish. He admits a flower garden is one thing, but fixing the fence and gate is impossible for Bickle alone. He suggests hiring a new companion as the area grows livelier. At the mansion gate, a man with a top hat and glasses welcomes Sir Ishel warmly. He asks what kind of person Ishel is looking for and if anyone can fix fences and gates. The man confidently offers a good candidate and gestures for Ishel to follow him inside. The man with the top hat introduces Lord Carpenter, a skilled craftsman reputed as the best in town. Ishel greets him warmly and asks if he can repair houses and similar structures. The man with the top hat confirms Lord Carpenter is quiet, and Ishel decides to hire him immediately. The man promises to begin the hiring procedures right away. Ishel contemplates hiring another person to assist Sylvia, as the growing number of people is too much for her alone. Suddenly, someone grabs his sleeve, startling him. A tearful young girl calls out desperately to her father, revealing an unexpected secret about Ishel's family. A tearful young girl reaches out through the bars, calling out desperately. The young man stammers, denying he is her father, caught off guard by her plea. Her trembling hand clutches the bars as she cries, her eyes filled with pain and confusion. He tries to gently explain, but the girl's sorrow is overwhelming. The girl bursts into loud sobs, her anguish echoing through the space. The young man stands frozen, thinking how bad this situation is and wondering what he can possibly say to comfort her. Suddenly, a stern voice commands silence, demanding the girl quiet down. The harsh man scolds the girl, ordering her to stop crying immediately. The girl continues to wail, kneeling and clutching the bars as the young man looks on helplessly. Suddenly, a man in a top hat rushes over, apologizing profusely for the disturbance. The young man tries to soothe the girl, asking her not to cry. The man in the top hat reprimands the girl for disturbing the guests, while the young man crouches beside her. Concerned, the man asks if the young man, Lord Ishel, is worried about the girl, suggesting she recognized his face and remembered her parents. The young man sees this as a chance to help, while the man explains the girl is usually calm but was triggered by seeing Ishel. The man in the top hat asks about the child's parents, explaining they seem to have passed away and she has no relatives to take her in. He appeals to Lord Ishel's kindness, urging him to rescue the lonely girl. The man then whispers to the young man that the girl learns quickly. The girl wipes tears from her eyes, still overwhelmed, while the young man looks at her through the bars with concern and hesitation. The young man agrees to take responsibility for the child, who gratefully thanks him. He smiles warmly, encouraging her to get along from now on. As they stand outside a building, a dark-haired man introduces the girl as Vivian to the young man. Vivian nervously greets him, while the man closes his eyes in calm. The young man reflects that becoming close so quickly is difficult and wonders if they can find a way to bond. The young man pauses as the little girl tugs at his sleeve, quietly telling him she's hungry. He brightens with determination, promising to take care of her needs. The scene shifts to a peaceful house under a clear sky. A cheerful woman apologizes for the wait as she brings a meal to the table, presenting a plate filled with rice, vegetables, spaghetti, and a hamburger steak. They sit together at the table, the girl marveling at the fancy meal, noting she's never had anything like it before. The young man encourages her to eat before it cools. She happily digs in, savoring every bite, and urges him to eat as well. He notices a plate of curry and chicken, surprised by the gesture. Memories flash back to the girl eating plain bread behind bars, revealing she was always hungry and hated her harsh life. She reassures herself not to worry now, clutching a fork with a determined expression. He assures her she can now eat as much as she wants, smiling warmly. Her eyes widen in joyful disbelief, and she exclaims happily. He laughs, telling her she can order as much as she likes too. She quietly thanks him as she eats, while he thinks it will take time for her to truly open up. A cheerful couple nearby hopes she will fit in soon, surrounded by lively people. The girl excitedly asks for pudding, leaving the vegetables untouched. He notices this and wonders if he should say something, but fears startling her if he speaks too suddenly. He gently suggests it would be great if she ate her vegetables too, but she complains they are bitter. Then she brightens, surprised to see the vegetables arranged into a smiling face on her plate. He worries aloud that Vivian might not eat the vegetables arranged in a smiling face on her plate. She hesitates, then ponders quietly before reluctantly agreeing. Vivian takes a bite, cheeks puffed in surprise, while he watches her with hopeful eyes. He praises Vivian warmly, gently patting her head as she beams with pride. She happily declares herself a good girl, flashing a peace sign with joy. He thinks to himself that she seems fine now. Vivian eagerly asks if she can have pudding after eating her vegetables, and he agrees happily. The scene shifts to a grand house under a bright sky. Inside, Vivian excitedly invites them to pick any room they like, claiming she wants the biggest one. Aishel looks surprised but is warmly welcomed by Bikkel and Sylvia, who greet her with smiles. Bikkel and Sylvia greet Aishel warmly, excitedly announcing her as their new companion. Sylvia looks surprised and asks about the little girl with them. The boy explains quietly that this is what happened, hinting at a story behind their arrival. Sylvia smiles kindly, telling Aishel that the situation suits her well. Bikkel enthusiastically shakes hands with Aishel, expressing eagerness to work together. Aishel responds with a reserved but polite agreement. Sylvia asks the boy if he used to be a carpenter, and he confidently offers to handle any carpentry work needed. Sylvia praises him as very reliable. He beams with joy, welcoming Vivian as a cute little helper who will work hard. Vivian excitedly affirms she will do her best, and Sylvia happily says it feels like having a little sister. Vivian gleefully calls Sylvia Mama, with sparkling enthusiasm, while Sylvia reacts in surprise, questioning if it's supposed to be Big Sister. The moment is filled with warmth and a hint of playful confusion. Morning begins at the grand house as the group gathers inside. The boy announces today's work, assigning Bikkel to tend the flower bed and sending Sylvia and Vivian to buy flower seeds. Both respond enthusiastically. The boy hands Sylvia money, encouraging her to spend any leftover freely, and she thanks him with a gentle smile. The boy urges everyone to do their best today, and the group responds with a spirited agreement, their resolve shining under the open sky. Outside, Bikkel and Rode prepare the flower bed, while Sylvia and Vivian arrive with supplies. Sylvia activates her cultivation skill, ready to nurture the garden. The boy recalls how the flower bed was prepared the previous night, showing the neat rows of seedlings. The scene shifts to a lush vegetable field brimming with cabbages. The boy cheerfully declares their goal to harvest a ton again today, surveying the thriving crops with pride. Surrounded by lively friends and enough food to live self-sufficiently, the spacious land feels like a comfortable home. The boy embraces a basket of fresh vegetables, sighing contentedly that this is the slow life he dreamed of. He dreams aloud of someday owning a ranch or orchard. As he welcomes Vivian and Sylvia back, his smile falters in surprise. Bikkel appears in new clothes, prompting the boy to question the change. Vivian cheerfully explains they bought the clothes with leftover money after purchasing flower seeds, while the woman beside her looks on with a knowing smile. The boy confirms that they could use the remaining money however they wanted, and the two women happily affirm they took him at his word. They share a warm moment, emphasizing that having fun is what truly matters. The boy and Bikkel wonder aloud where Rode is, learning he went back to his room for some reason. Suddenly, the boy is startled as a gentle hand touches his shoulder. The woman reveals she also got an outfit for him, teasing that maybe he'll try it on. The boy awkwardly admits his sense of fashion isn't bad after all, confidently asking if it's flawless. The woman and girl beam with delight, praising him. Suddenly, the boy and Bikkel hear their names called and turn in surprise. The boy announces to watch closely as he prepares to show something. The two women cheerfully announce it's time for Sylvia and Vivian's fashion show. Their excitement infectious. The boy and Bikkel watch with wide eyes, clapping in anticipation. Vivian and Sylvia strike elegant poses in their new outfits, each complimenting the other's appearance. The boy marvels at their transformation, noting that Road is missing out by not seeing this. A few hours later, the boy and Bickle prepare for the next event. Noting it's almost dinner time, the boy suggests continuing the fun tomorrow, catching Bickle off guard. The scene closes on the peaceful exterior of the house as the day winds down. The boy stretches and decides to check his status. He notices a new skill has been acquired. Carpentry level 1. Curious, he wonders about the skill and resolves to test it out. He steps outside, choosing a spot he deems suitable for the trial. He contemplates the skill's effect, worried that if it instantly creates a building, it could cause problems. As he activates the skill, his hand moves on its own, surprising him. The boy observes the result. Blueprints have appeared on the ground. At level 1, the skill only allows him to draw blueprints. He plans to copy the design onto paper and calls for Road and Bickle to help him out. Road and Bickle examine the blueprint, impressed by its quality and praising Aishel's skill. The boy thanks them and explains he can't assemble the structure alone, so he asks for their help in building it. The boy points toward a spot beyond the gate, directing his companions as they prepare tools and materials. They gather near the fence, ready to begin work. The sky above is calm and clear, signaling a peaceful moment. The gate stands fully repaired, its bars straight and secure. The boy and 2 women admire their handiwork, noting how the flower bed enhances the view and the security is now flawless. The mansion behind them looks stately, framed by blooming roses. The woman suggests it's time to end their work for the day and have dinner. The boy agrees, smiling as they prepare to rest. He reflects silently that if they can fix the gate, perhaps more can be done. The sky remains bright, hinting at the day's end. The boy excitedly proposes remodeling the house itself, pointing out that while the gate is solid, the mansion is crumbling. The women listen thoughtfully, one nodding in agreement. They acknowledge the house could collapse any time, but express doubt about handling such a large project alone. The boy calls out to Vivian, seeking her input as they consider the daunting task ahead. The house, will it come out? The thought of the family coming together as one shakes them deeply. The boy, wide-eyed and sweating, is struck by the weight of the idea. Determined, he declares they must renovate the house. The blueprint looks solid, but they face a serious shortage of manpower. The boy nervously asks if they really are that short-handed. The woman suggests visiting someone she can recommend. The boy brightens at the idea, agreeing enthusiastically. Inside a room, a muscular man warns the boy to leave if he's just window shopping, emphasizing they charge high and don't do half-baked jobs. The boy accepts this firmly, relieved to hear it. The man insists he doesn't care about the cost. The boy passionately vows to build a safe home for his friends, refusing to live with cockroaches. The man, surprised by the boy's determination and youthful fire, asks if he'll take the job. The boy confidently agrees, sealing their pact. The builder demands a down payment of 10 gold coins, enough for an adult to live idly for a whole year, questioning if the boy can afford it. The boy clenches his fists, determined. The builder, sitting confidently on a couch, asks if the boy is willing to pay that price. The boy responds with a resolute, "If that's what it takes." The boy slams a small bag on the table, pleading with the master builder that some things are worth more than gold. He refuses to live with cockroaches, shocking the builder. The builder, surprised, asks if the boy would give up his money for his friends. The builder laughs heartily and declares he likes the boy. He promises to lend his best carpenter to help with the project. The boy beams with gratitude, thanking him sincerely. The scene shifts to the mansion they plan to renovate. A cheerful young man named Xiao introduces himself, greeting the boy warmly. They shake hands as Xiao confirms they are renovating the mansion. The boy agrees and suggests starting with the blueprints. The boy proudly reveals the blueprints he drew himself, but the builder dismisses amateur designs as insufficient. The boy's expression shifts to surprise as the builder examines the plans closely, then exclaims they are flawless. The group shares a moment of mutual respect and admiration. The builder then points out the need for materials to remodel the mansion, though the boy worries about the quantity required. The young man with short hair reassures him that's not the real problem. Outside, the group stands beneath the trees as the boy demonstrates a magical ability, causing glowing particles to swirl around. The boy announces he can now use the logging skill, impressing the others as 2 men carry large logs. The builder offers to help if supplies run short. The boy confidently declares everything is ready, signaling the start of their work. With a determined fist raised, the boy declares it's time to remodel the house. Leaves drift in the wind as the group faces the mansion. Ready to begin, the narration confirms renovation preparations are complete, aiming for a safe and comfortable new home. The boy recalls taking Xiao and others to a construction company for the mansion renovation, learning that the budget starts at a minimum of 45 gold coins. A confident young man raises his hand, encouraging Aishel by saying they are counting on him. A cheerful girl calls out to Aishul, rallying his spirits. The group excitedly discusses additions to the mansion. A slide in the yard, a swing, a bathroom made of rare Gokaseki stone, and even an open-air bath. The builder calculates the new budget, which jumps to 90 gold coins, causing the boy to wince at the steep cost. The builder then offers a way to save money, catching everyone's attention. At the construction site, Aishul is instructed to move materials next and promptly sets off carrying a large box. The group discusses how doing the work themselves will save money. A woman calls out to Aishul, suggesting a break for lunch, and everyone agrees as they prepare to pause their efforts. The group gathers to enjoy a meal together, sharing various dishes with smiles and light-hearted conversation. The foreman greets Aishul warmly, praising his good work. Aishul savors the salty flavor of the food, visibly relaxed and content as the team bonds over their shared efforts. The group acknowledges the hard work being put in, with one praising the extra hands as a huge help. The boy wishes he could do more than just haul materials. The man points out the boy's carpenter skills and invites him to try helping out more. The boy, surprised, agrees hesitantly. The boy affirms his willingness to help, though he admits he's only level 1. The man encourages him, noting the boy's efficiency and potential, and asks if he can keep helping. The boy looks determined but contemplative. The boy's skills improve steadily as the foreman assigns him tasks. They exchange encouragements to keep up the good work. The boy and others reflect on how they've grown used to living at the inn but still long for their own home. The boy collapses from exhaustion, prompting concern from his companions. He insists he's fine, though he admits he can't exactly say that. Despite the difficulty, he wants to give his all to whatever he can do, showing his resolve to persevere. He recalls being locked away and called useless by the Belbalat family. Unable to do anything, now, he can go outside freely and pursue what he wants. Finding joy in that freedom alone, with determination, he pledges to help in any small way he can, receiving offers of a massage and a drink in gratitude. 1 week later, a woman wonders where Aishul is, surprised he's not with the foreman. A man explains Aishul had other work to do that day. As lunchtime approaches, they call everyone together, shocked to see Aishul smiling brightly while holding a large bottle and a rifle. Aishul presents a freshly caught animal, explaining he brought energy to help with the construction's final stretch. When asked what new skill he's learned, he proudly answers hunting. A comparison shows his hunting level at 1 and carpenter level at 4. Noting skills increase in versatility as well as level, fired up, he rallies everyone to eat the meat and push through the final stretch, marking 1 month since construction began. The group stands before the completed mansion, leaves swirling in the air as they celebrate. Their faces beam with pride and happiness, united in the success of their renovation. A young girl marvels at the mansion's interior, exclaiming how beautiful it is. She notices the spacious new kitchen and expresses excitement about cooking becoming more fun. She suggests a party to celebrate the house's completion, inviting everyone to cook together. 2 others enthusiastically agree to go all out for the special occasion. Plans for the celebration take shape as one offers to handle the cooking while another insists on bringing the ingredients. Aishul eagerly decides to use his skill to get a duck, but is quickly told to move the butchering elsewhere. The group prepares to cook together, with Vivian already stirring a pot and others ready to assist. The cooking finishes, revealing a spread of delicious dishes. The girl beams with joy, praising the food's appearance and taste. The group shares a warm moment, acknowledging their teamwork in making the meal. Raising a frothy mug, one proposes a toast to celebrate the mansion's renovation. The group gathers closely, raising their mugs in a cheerful toast. They all smile brightly, voices joining in a heartfelt cheers, as they celebrate their shared accomplishment and the new beginning in the renovated mansion. A girl excitedly suggests continuing the fashion show to celebrate the new mansion, sparking surprise and enthusiasm from the others. One warns Xiao that he might regret this idea, but he simply smiles, raising his frothy mug in quiet anticipation. Reflecting inwardly, Xiao credits his ability to live well to his growing production skills. Listing hunting, farming, fishing, and carpentry as his crafts, he drinks deeply, hopeful that improving these skills will allow him to provide an even better life for his friends. Suddenly called by name, Xiao turns to see the group inviting him to join their meal. They praise the delicious duck he caught, sharing a warm moment in front of the grand mansion. A soft smile crosses his face as he thinks about the mansion and their future. The scene widens to show the lively gathering around a table filled with food. Xiao eagerly responds to the call, running toward the group as they laugh and enjoy the feast together. The atmosphere filled with joy and camaraderie. The group bursts into laughter and cheers, raising their mugs high in celebration. Xiao smiles quietly, holding his own drink as the night sky fills with shooting stars. The scene fades to empty plates and a grateful voice thanking everyone for the meal. A joyful girl declares she's stuffed, surrounded by floating flowers and butterflies. The group shares warm words about the rare joy of feasting, with one admitting he never imagined such a meal. As the sky darkens, someone notices the late hour. The friends gather around a table outdoors, agreeing it's time to rest after a hard day's work. They pledge to return to their tasks tomorrow, promising to expand the fields and help each other. Spirits lift as they vow to give their best again starting the next day. The grand mansion stands under a darkening sky as the group affirms their commitment to work hard together from now on. They exchange goodnights, with Xiao pausing thoughtfully before bidding farewell, the night settling peacefully around them. Aishul offers Sylvia a drink before bed. Praising her good work with a warm smile, Sylvia accepts, and Aishul admits she's constantly surprised by how capable Sylvia is. Sylvia laughs, denying there's anything she can't do alone, standing together under the night sky. They gaze at the grand mansion, acknowledging that the party was possible because everyone helped out. Sylvia thanks Aishul sincerely, who reminds her they're companions and always there for each other. Over glasses of wine, Aishul jokes about building a castle next, but quickly clarifies it's a joke. Sylvia suggests Vivian would love that idea. Aishul reveals he's already decided on the next project. A storehouse to be built by Xiao and Lordo. Sylvia asks if he plans to grow more vegetables through farming, but he shakes his head. Aishul suddenly brightens and announces he's going to a dungeon. Holding his drink with enthusiasm, Sylvia's expression shifts to shock and confusion, demanding to know why. The calm atmosphere after the party shatters with this unexpected declaration. The group excitedly announces to Master Aishul that the storehouse he requested is finally complete. Aishul thanks them for their quick work, but concern flickers as they question his plan to go to Dungeon Guardia. Despite their worries, he insists he's not hesitant at all. The narration explains Dungeon Guardia is the only dungeon in the Guardia Kingdom, located in St. Luria. Its depths and number of floors remain a mystery, and no one has ever reached the lowest level. The dungeon is filled with monsters, making it extremely dangerous, but treasures found there fetch high prices. The young man dreams of finding treasure to make a fortune and improve his friends' lives. Aishul's concern deepens as he worries about Sylvia going into the dungeon, reminding her she's an amateur in combat despite her production skills. Sylvia confidently shows her new skill, Swordsmith Level 1, which she gained through leveling up her hunting skill. She explains the storehouse was built specifically to use the skill, though the others look puzzled about how it works. Sylvia enthusiastically declares she'll craft strong weapons with her swordsmith skill, enabling her to fight in the dungeon. She plans to test the storehouse immediately now that it's finished. Despite her confidence, Aishul remains quietly worried as the group stands together near the new building, the weight of the upcoming challenge settling around them. The young man tries activating his swordsmith skill, but nothing happens, leaving everyone puzzled. He wonders if he's missing something since a blueprint appeared when he used the carpenter skill. His companion realizes blacksmithing requires materials to create items, prompting him to decide to buy some supplies. At the weapon shop, the merchant offers a strong sword called the Golden Lion Sword, the finest but pricey item in the store. The young man eagerly asks if he can buy it, confident he can handle it. The merchant explains that to enhance the sword with the blacksmithing skill, the young man will need enhancement orbs as materials. He shows several orbs, saying 5 should be enough for the task. The young man requests 30 enhancement orbs, surprising the merchant. He insists that only weapons can protect him against monsters, not production skills. Preparing his workspace, he plans to use just 1 orb on the Golden Lion Sword for now. The young man focuses intently, channeling his blacksmithing skill with determination. Magical energy swirls around his hands as he prepares to enhance the Golden Lion Sword, the orb of power glowing intensely beside him. He wipes sweat from his brow, relieved to announce the enhancement is complete. The Golden Lion Sword now gleams with a +1 upgrade, reflecting on his past. He realizes his skills have only supported daily life until now. Understanding why Sylvia worries, resolving to keep improving the sword, he looks forward to easing her concerns. The next day, he proudly calls out to Sylvia and Vivian. Revealing the finished weapon, Sylvia inspects it carefully. Noting it looks like an ordinary sword, he warns them to stand back, preparing to demonstrate its power. With a determined swing, he strikes a tree, sending a powerful shock through the trunk. Sylvia and Vivian watch in awe, their expressions a mix of surprise and excitement at the sword's impressive strength. Rode demonstrates the Golden Lion Sword's power with a mighty strike that shakes a tree, impressing Sylvia and Vivian who watch in awe. He confidently claims he can defeat any enemy with a single blow, urging them not to worry. Despite his assurance, Sylvia admits she still can't stop worrying. Sylvia reminds him he also needs armor, catching him off guard but agreeing reluctantly. She insists on choosing the best armor for both protection and appearance, and he's relieved to see her less worried. Leaves drift gently over the town as they prepare to shop. The group arrives in a bustling town near the dungeon. Filled with adventurers, Sylvia marvels at the lively scene. Though she feels somewhat out of place, the group decides to head to the armor shop, with others suggesting options enthusiastically. At the armor shop, Sylvia tries on heavy armor but struggles to move. Rode advises her she needs protection that allows mobility. Vivian watches with excitement as Sylvia considers the options. Suddenly, a hand gently steadies Sylvia, surprising her as she reacts to the unexpected touch. A man warns a young girl about the dangers of wandering around alone, urging her to be careful. A woman stands nearby, watching intently. Suddenly, a girl in armor hurriedly approaches, apologizing as she tries to get past. The man advises the woman not to take her eyes off the children, concerned for their safety. The group notices a job posting about mercenary recruitment. They explain they take any job involving fighting, from bodyguard work to dungeon exploration. The armored girl asks if they are mercenaries, and the man confirms with a cheerful nod. The group debates quietly about asking the mercenaries to escort them. Feeling it might be sudden but potentially safer, the armored girl nervously tries to respond when questioned. The woman formally asks if they are available for hire, explaining the job is an escort mission inside Dungeon Guardia. The man hesitates, finding the idea of exploring a dungeon while babysitting a rich kid a bit much, and laughs it off. The young man reacts with surprise and excitement at the prospect. Suddenly, a massive white wolf bursts into the town. Roaring fiercely, people shout in alarm, recognizing it as a monster and questioning if it came from Guardia. Aishel is urged to run as the crowd scrambles to get out of the way. The young man looks shocked and tense, trying to clear a path amid the chaos. The woman orders Isis to draw the white wolf's attention, and he eagerly agrees. She prepares to blow it away with magic. Nearby, Aishel urges the young man to run, but he refuses despite the chaos. Suddenly, a cry pierces the air. The young man spots a child who couldn't escape the danger. He warns the others not to misunderstand, fearing the fight will ruin them if they get involved. His voice rises urgently, identifying the child trapped in the fray. The young man agonizes over what to do as the white wolf leaps through the town. Roaring fiercely, the child cowers in fear as debris crashes down around her. The monsters attack, wreaking havoc. The young man dives to shield the child from falling rubble, catching her just in time. He checks if she is all right, and she nods, tearful but safe, as the destruction continues around them. The white wolf lunges fiercely toward the young man and the child, growling menacingly. The young man braces himself, gripping the child tightly as a sword is drawn swiftly in response. The blade slashes close to the wolf's face, halting its attack. The young man, still holding the child, is praised for saving them. Another steps forward, declaring they will take over from here. Isis finishes her chant and is told to move quickly to avoid the blast. The group prepares to flee together. Isis swings her staff, unleashing a powerful magical blast that explodes near the white wolf. The wolf recoils, startled and hurt. As the young man watches in shock, the blast creates a momentary opening. The white wolf collapses, defeated. As the group stands nearby catching their breath, bystanders marvel at the feat. Expressing amazement and relief, Aishel is checked on, reassured she is safe, and gratitude is exchanged among the group. A young man thanks the pair for their help earlier, and they respond modestly. The young man admits he isn't impressed that the other jumped in unarmed, but then smiles and says he's changed his mind. The woman remarks she thought he was just a rich kid looking for fun, but now sees he has guts. The man introduces himself as Isis and the woman as Nir. They accept the escort job the young man was asking about, surprising him. Isis explains they don't come cheap and asks how much the young man can pay. He offers 5 gold coins a month, which shocks the pair. The young man introduces himself as Aishel and says they'll be fighting together as equals. Isis expresses surprise, noting he expected nobles to be stuffy but finds Aishel different. The three share a warm moment, affirming their new bond. Aishel, Isis, and Nir prepare to head off to the dungeon together, united and ready for the challenge ahead. A young man cheerfully introduces Isis and Nir to the group, greeting everyone warmly. A girl watches thoughtfully, noting how things are becoming livelier. The group exchanges polite greetings, acknowledging the newcomers with smiles and friendly words. The girl excitedly asks if Isis's staff is magic, eager to see it in action. Isis confirms she uses magic, and the girl beams with anticipation. As Isis hesitates, the girl's enthusiasm grows, and she joyfully reacts to the magical display. Inside a cozy room, the young man offers sword training to the group. Expressing his interest, A feast is prepared to welcome the newcomers, and the mansion glows warmly in the evening light. The narration reflects that the long-awaited day to challenge the dungeon has finally arrived. The group gathers outside as loved ones encourage them to do their best and share stories upon return. A woman urges Aishel to be careful, who confidently assures her he'll be fine, holding a sword enhanced by his production skills. The team sets off, united and ready for the dungeon challenge. The group reassures the young man, telling him they are with him and he can rest easy. A woman smiles warmly, urging them to be safe and return with plenty of treasure. The scene shifts to the stone-walled dungeon guardia. Inside the dungeon, a man swings his sword with skill and confidence. He advises the young man not to push himself and to stay behind, reminding him this is his first real fight. The young man grips his sword tightly, determined despite the warning. The young man charges forward with resolve, knowing he can't afford to fall behind. He declares they are comrades who watch each other's backs now. Wielding a shining golden lion sword, his companions watch in surprise and admiration. The man praises the young man's solid swing and the sword's incredible performance, recognizing the power of production. The young man responds with enthusiasm, ready to keep moving forward as his companions smile encouragingly. The group descends deeper into the dungeon, with one urging the others not to fall behind. The young man responds eagerly, ready for the challenge ahead. They move down the stone steps, determined and alert. They gather around a spread of collected items, examining them closely. One points out rare materials like gale wings and ultramarine water, impressed by the valuable finds. The young man asks his companions what the items are, intrigued by their significance. The explanation comes that one item is a monster egg, a rare and valuable drop. It can be sold for good money or, if skilled, used to tame the monster that hatches from it. The young man excitedly begins the taming process, eyes shining with anticipation. Though he admits he lacks the skill to tame monsters yet, he vows to acquire it someday. Holding the monster egg carefully in his item bag, the group stands on the 10th floor of Dungeon Guardia, ready to press onward. The group discovers a treasure chest unlike any they've seen before. One remarks that milestone floors like this always hold valuable loot. They prepare cautiously, sensing something unusual about this chest. Suddenly, a massive figure approaches, prompting them to ready their weapons. A huge wolf-like boss monster emerges, growling fiercely as it guards the treasure chest. The leader warns that the chest won't be given up easily, signaling a tough battle ahead. The group braces themselves, eyes locked on the imposing beast. The leader swiftly grabs the monster and hurls it away with surprising strength. The wolf snaps at his sword midair, but he narrowly avoids the attack. Shock ripples through the group as they realize the leader's power. He commands everyone to fall back as the monster lunges again. The wolf unleashes a powerful attack, but the woman with the staff counters by sending the energy blast right back at it. The group stands firm, ready to face the boss and claim the treasure it guards. The woman commands Aishel to take action, and the young man grips his sword tightly, determined to deliver the finishing blow. He swings down with all his might, striking the massive wolf-like beast as the group watches tensely. The beast growls fiercely, its eyes locked on the group as it struggles to stay standing. The young man pants heavily, catching his breath after the intense attack, while the others prepare for what might come next. Suddenly, the tension breaks as the young man triumphantly declares their victory. The group gathers around the treasure chest, excitement building as they prepare to open it and see what lies inside. Their anticipation turns to surprise and confusion when they discover a rusty sword inside the chest. The young man examines it closely, realizing this is no ordinary weapon. He calls out to Aishel, wondering if the sword might be restored or enhanced by a swordsmith. As the others look on with mixed curiosity and disbelief, the group notices there are more floors above them. Prompting a question about their next move, the young man, holding a bag of items, decides to call it a day. Suddenly, everyone gasps in awe as they realize they have returned home. They examine their spoils, questioning if they can really sell what looks like ordinary rocks. But the young man estimates their worth at about 20 gold coins. Surprising the others, a large egg draws attention, identified as a mamo egg. While the young man tasks Isis and Nir with sorting the spoils, he then announces he will head to the storehouse. The young man confidently points to the rusty sword, preparing to explain its significance. He shatters a glass panel to reveal the sword, noting that at first glance it looks shabby, but there's more to it. The sword is identified as a rusted demon sword, weaker than a standard one but once a masterpiece. The young man realizes it's no ordinary sword and plans to enhance it using enhancement orbs, determined to restore its power. The young man calls out to the swordsmith, proudly holding up the restored demon sword and declaring his success. He feels exhilarated, confident that with this weapon, He can face stronger monsters and delve deeper into the dungeon. The night sky looms as his excitement grows. The next morning, he wakes abruptly to a strange noise. His loot bag is moving on its own, making soft sounds that catch him completely off guard. Alarmed, he approaches the bag cautiously, sword drawn. Suddenly, two small creatures emerge. A unicorn and a dragon, both making soft noises. He wonders if the monster egg he found is hatched, struggling to comprehend the unexpected situation. Holding the two creatures gently, he stares at them in disbelief, questioning what he should do next. The unicorn and dragon look up at him innocently, leaving him facing an unforeseen choice. Two baby monsters, a unicorn and a dragon, sparkle with innocence as they make soft noises. A girl blushes, overwhelmed by their cuteness. The group admires them, but a cautious voice warns they remain dangerous despite their size. The girl gazes intently at the tiny creatures resting on a table. The dragon baby calls out again, startling a woman who blushes deeply. The woman and the girl both find the babies irresistibly cute, despite the woman's previous opposition to dungeon exploration. The young man reflects that the eggs hatching surprised him, realizing he acquired a taming skill that might explain it. The girl wonders if the little monsters can be sold now that they've hatched. The woman confidently states the town's monster shop will accept the babies. The young man agrees, noting dragons and unicorns are rare and valuable. The girl's expression hardens in refusal, shouting an emphatic denial to selling them. The trio faces her determined stance, caught off guard by her strong reaction. The girl insists on raising the baby monsters herself. Despite the young man's concerns about the challenge, he acknowledges his taming skill but worries about handling such large creatures from the start. She argues that raising them is necessary since they will only grow bigger. The girl holds the babies protectively, determined to care for them personally. The young man suggests raising the baby monsters might be a good idea, imagining how helpful they could be once grown for dungeon exploration. He calls out to Isis, while the girl, clutching the babies, hesitates but then tearfully argues that if a slave can become family, why can't a monster? She insists on this, though the young man nervously tries to respond. The young man awkwardly agrees to the idea, causing the woman and girl to cheer happily. They discuss who will look after the babies, noting that Isis and the young man are often away exploring the dungeon. Sylvia has chores, and others like Bickle tend the fields. The girl excitedly volunteers Vivi to care for the babies. The woman reminds them they need to give the babies names. The young man and girl ponder thoughtfully, then happily announce the names. The unicorn is Korin and the dragon is Woolroo. They all agree to get along from now on, smiling warmly at the babies. The group wonders what baby monsters eat, deciding since they're babies, maybe milk. The woman offers to warm some up. The babies look hungry and soon start drinking from a bottle, delighting everyone with their cuteness. The group agrees they will need a pen once the babies grow bigger, and the woman cheerfully offers to ask the masters for advice. The young man suggests focusing on caring for Woolroo and the others for now, noting milk won't last long and they'll need to buy more food. Suddenly, a scream echoes from the mansion, and the young man calls out in alarm for Sylvia. Inside the mansion, Woolroo has grown significantly, towering over the young man and woman who watch in awe. They call out to Woolroo, amazed at its size as the room's walls show cracks from its growth. Outside, a man greets Aishel, telling him it's time to return to exploring, warning the dragon not to leave the grounds to avoid scaring others. Aishel is startled as Woolroo flaps its wings, now large enough to accompany them. The man confirms that with Woolroo's size, they can finally bring it to the dungeon. Woolroo eagerly responds, ready to go. While the young man encourages it with a smile, the scene shifts to the 11th floor of the Guardia dungeon, setting the stage for their next adventure. The young man opens a magic cage designed to shrink monsters for easy transport and calls out to Woolroo to come out. The small dragon peeks out hesitantly, then steps out fully, stretching its wings and looking around curiously. He announces they will start exploring from the 11th floor onward, warning that the dungeon is filled with tough boss-class monsters. Despite the danger, he is determined to clear the 15th floor today, confident with Woolroo and his new demon sword by his side. Woolroo responds enthusiastically. He reminds Woolroo to retreat into the magic cage immediately if things get dangerous, mindful not to push the dragon too hard on its first battle. Suddenly, Woolroo darts forward, prompting the young man to shout in alarm. The witch readies her staff as Woolroo confronts a massive armored enemy. After a fierce fight, Woolroo triumphantly holds a treasure chest, signaling victory. The group, amazed by the demon sword's power, acknowledges their success in reaching the 15th floor. A young woman joyfully calls out to Aishel, showing off the large harvest they've gathered. Aishel feels guilty for making her help despite her own chores, but she insists she has some free time, He reflects on how much work a rice paddy this size must be. Aishul gains a new skill called from his dungeon exploring, which now allows him to grow crops in the rice paddies. He looks on as leaves drift in the air, appreciating this new ability. Thanks to his dungeon exploration, Aishul has also acquired skills in, and which have stabilized his life. He arrives home with a huge haul, greeted warmly by his companions. Woolroo, the small dragon, is praised for being a huge help again today. With his day's work done, Aishul offers to help with the harvest. He enjoys the peaceful, slow life but suddenly hears someone calling his name and is told he has a visitor, causing him to look up with a surprised expression. Aishul and a young girl stare in shock as a grand carriage arrives. They wonder if the visitor could be from the Belbalat family. The girl asks if the visitor is a friend of Aishul's, but he denies it, his mind racing with suspicion. She notices the carriage's unfamiliar decorations and realizes the crest is not from Guardia. A woman steps forward with a calm smile, prompting Aishul to ask her identity. A man nearby demands the visitor to stop, calling her rude, but she silences him politely. She introduces herself as Teresa, mother of the current king of the Rose-Free Kingdom. Shock hits Aishul as he realizes she is the Queen Dowager. She addresses Aishul directly, saying she has come to ask a favor. The Queen Dowager pleads earnestly, her expression filled with urgency and sorrow. She begs Aishul to save their kingdom, emphasizing the gravity of her request and the fate of an entire nation hanging in the balance. The woman asks what exactly he wants to ask. While Aishul sits on a couch, curious, two girls peek from behind a door, wondering if Vivi and the others are allowed to hear this secret. Aishul admits he has heard rumors about himself but doesn't recall doing anything noteworthy. Aishul confirms he conquered the 15th floor of Dungeon Guardia, surprised by the mention. The woman explains that such an achievement involves state secrets and must belong to someone with a proven background. Aishul nervously admits he is a member of the Belbalat family, one of Guardia's most prominent noble families. The woman warns that this is all the more reason not to tell a foreign noble. She recalls how Aishul's father Leonis's bravery is well known even in her Rose-Free Kingdom. She says revealing this would be like advertising his own kingdom's crisis, despite being exiled for having a non-combat vocation. Aishul possesses the military strength to conquer dungeons instantly but shows no signs of flaunting it. The woman praises Aishul for living modestly with his companions on the frontier and risking his life to save children during the White Wolf incident. Aishul is surprised she has investigated so far. She says she has come to ask a favor of him, emphasizing that he neither seeks honor nor status but can reach out to others. The favor concerns her son, the current king of the Rose-Free Kingdom. The king has fallen gravely ill, too weak to rise on his own. His wife and the queen manage his duties to keep his condition secret. Yet, with tensions rising against a neighboring nation, a leak about his state could spark war. The queen admits her deepest wish as a mother, to save her son at any cost. The young man addresses her respectfully as Lady Teresa. She calmly instructs him to retrieve marumuru grass from the 20th floor of Dungeon Guardia, explaining it's essential for a specific medicine. The young man asks what he should do, and she confirms the task with a gentle smile. The young man contemplates the danger of the 20th floor, a place few adventurers have reached. Despite the risks to his companions Isis, Woolroo, and Near, he resolves to help Lady Teresa. Doubt flickers in his eyes as he questions whether accepting this mission is truly right. The queen asks him to consider the request carefully and promises to keep the matter confidential. He agrees and looks forward to a favorable reply. Outside, the young man confirms with a companion that the discussion is over and that he will indeed venture to the 20th floor for medicinal herbs, though he cannot disclose the full details. The young man reflects on the perilous 20th floor, noting few ever reach it and the unknown dangers both above and below. A concerned woman asks if he can return safely, but he admits he doesn't know. His gaze hardens as he states he's content with the current peace, where Sylvia and others live without struggle. He argues against accepting the dangerous request, suggesting they find another party to take it instead. The woman, named Aishul, acknowledges his caution but presses him, reminding him he wants to help her. He responds with hesitation. The young man's expression softens as he recalls the same determined look he had when first reaching out to them. The woman and two companions smile encouragingly. He struggles to speak, questioning the danger, while a flashback shows the queen pleading for their kingdom's salvation. His companions cheerfully remind Aishul not to underestimate them, emphasizing they are adventurers before mercenaries and willing to face the dungeon's dangers. Woolroo eagerly wants to join, and the young man offers help with preparations. Overwhelmed, Aishul looks at everyone and murmurs their names, realizing the support she has. The young man firmly declares his decision to save the king, thanking everyone. His companions smile in agreement, and one adds that it's settled. He then requests additional firepower, specifically a skilled adventurer adept at long-range attacks, as a bow is shown. The woman with long dark hair suggests she knows an archer girl who might be willing to help, despite some hesitation. She insists they go see her, confident the girl is somewhere in the dungeon. Suddenly, a monstrous creature with a huge open mouth appears, roaring fiercely. The group reacts with alarm as the young man shouts for it to get out of his way. A smaller panel reveals the monsters on the 16th floor are tough again, showing the group facing the threat. The archer girl swiftly fires an arrow, her expression determined as she stands ready. The arrow flies toward the monstrous foe, signaling the start of a fierce battle. The group stands over a fallen monster, amazed at how it was taken down with a single strike. A woman with long dark hair greets them warmly, saying it's been a while. The blonde woman calls out to Nier, recognizing him, and waves excitedly. Nearby, a curious onlooker wonders who these people are. The blonde woman explains she wants them to come with her to the 20th floor of Guardia. The young man eagerly expresses his interest in that floor. She states her policy of not taking requests from others, emphasizing she fights only enemies she chooses and explores places she wants. She adds that despite knowing Nier, she cannot trust him. The blonde woman questions if the young man is a noble and doubts his usefulness on the 20th floor, calling him deadweight. He nervously admits he can use a sword and magic just a little. She insists she can't trust someone like him with her life. The young man apologizes and tells her to look elsewhere, acknowledging her point that the floor isn't suitable for someone inferior in combat like him. Suddenly, a large, playful dragon bursts out, causing the young man to shout at Woolroo to stop it. The dragon excitedly emerges into the dungeon. The blonde woman reacts with shock, realizing the creature is one of the 5 great dragons. The young man gently touches the dragon, stunned by its presence. The young man explains that the creature is a water dragon, his first time seeing one. He learns about the 5 great dragons who rule over the 5 elements and are especially powerful. He asks Woolroo if he was really such an amazing guy, and the water dragon affectionately embraces Woolroo, who cheerfully tells it to calm down. Nier watches, surprised by the bond. Nier admits disbelief at having one of the 5 great dragons as a follower. He questions Woolroo, noting dragons usually don't grow fond of humans. Woolroo humbly replies he's just an ordinary human. He confesses he's nowhere near as skilled as others but will do anything he can, regardless of the reward, and earnestly pleads for trust. Woolroo expresses his desire to return safely with all his precious companions. He credits Isis and Nier for reaching the 10th floor and Woolroo's efforts for making it to the 15th. He confidently states that with their combined strength, they can break through even the 20th floor. Nier listens thoughtfully, folding his arms. Nier addresses Sasha, saying that if she joins everyone here, they can challenge deep floors she couldn't reach alone. Sasha agrees, noting they will encounter strong enemies they haven't seen yet. She smiles and says it's not a bad deal, while Nier looks determined and ready for the challenge ahead. Teresa expresses disbelief at Woolroo's confident claim, declaring she will be the one to defeat the boss on the 20th floor. Woolroo agrees enthusiastically, promising to do his part in exchange. A voice affirms their trust in Sasha, counting on her support. The scene shifts to the dungeon Guardia entrance as someone steps forward decisively. The group stands before the dungeon entrance, nerves and excitement mingling. They reassure each other they've prepared well, showing off new weapons crafted with Aishel's skill. Woolroo's presence is acknowledged with a cheerful greeting from Nier. United and determined, the companions rally together, ready to face the unknown depths of the dungeon. They step forward through the entrance, shouting their resolve to reach the 20th floor. A goblin screams as it swings a large wooden club, but Woolroo braces himself with a determined grunt. A spear flies swiftly through the air, aimed at the goblin, as a voice calls out the name, Aishel. The spear strikes the goblin, sending it reeling backward. Woolroo dodges a desperate attack, then counters with a powerful sword strike. He thanks Aishel for the timely rescue, but a cloaked figure warns him the fight isn't over yet. Isis readies her magic, responding with a firm, right? Flames burst forth from Isis's staff, engulfing the goblin as Woolroo and the others stand ready. The goblin collapses, exhausted. Teresa wipes sweat from her brow, noting that the 16th floor and below are notoriously difficult. With enemies as strong as bosses from upper floors, the group catches their breath, standing together after the battle. The scene shifts to a quiet moment as the group considers taking a break. One suggests resting, but Woolroo insists they keep going despite the fatigue. Meanwhile, a somber scene shows the king lying ill in bed, with a concerned attendant nearby. A caption reveals the king's condition is worsening even as the group presses onward. The group moves quickly through a crumbling corridor as a voice urges them to hurry. Suddenly, a massive stone golem swings its arm toward them. A warning shouts out to Aishel to stay back as the giant's attack crashes down. The golem's powerful strike lands, sending one of the group sprawling. The attacker grits his teeth, struggling to rise. While the others prepare to fight back, Isis is called out too, and she retaliates with a fierce magical strike against the monstrous foe. After the clash, concern spreads among the group as they check on Isis. She insists she's fine despite the injury, brushing off worries. The wound on her arm is clearly visible, but she smiles, insisting it's just a scratch. Aishel apologizes for messing up despite being protected, but the injured member laughs it off. Isis offers to treat the wound, and the group steps into a new area. They note the atmosphere has changed as they arrive on the 20th floor, surrounded by trees and a different environment from before. The group surveys the unfamiliar plants around them, noting even the weeds here would fetch a high price in town. One member points out a particular plant worth 5 gold coins per stem, but their real target is the marumara grass. When asked how to identify it, another reassures him not to worry and uses a skill called observation to reveal the correct plant. They confirm the marumara grass's appearance from a reference sheet and find it growing nearby. Despite the quiet surroundings, one wonders if someone else has already defeated the boss here. Another recalls gathering rumors at the tavern but found none, while a third reveals that the boss of this floor is said to be a werewolf, according to the few remaining records. The group contemplates the cunning nature of the monster, which has claimed many adventurers. One warns that if the werewolf doesn't reveal itself, it might be hiding nearby. Suddenly, a shout warns Aishel to look out. A massive werewolf lunges at Aishel, who barely manages to raise a dagger in defense. The beast's roar fills the air as the group braces for the attack. Understanding this is how it ambushes those who come to harvest the marumara grass. The group charges forward as a massive werewolf lunges at Aishel. He barely dodges the attack, gripping his sword tightly. Suddenly, a dragon-like creature leaps in, grabbing the werewolf and holding it back. The dragon calls out to Wulru, who stands ready with his sword. Isis is urged to use her sword, while another readies a bow to pin the werewolf down. Aishel throws an object, aiming carefully. The werewolf snarls fiercely, but the attack lands. The team attacks in unison, confident they can win despite the werewolf's strength. Aishel reacts with shock as the werewolf reveals a new power. The leader urges them to finish the fight quickly. The werewolf roars, unfazed by their assault. Aishel and the others realize their attack failed because the werewolf activated a unique skill called Fortitude, greatly boosting its defense. They acknowledge that boss monsters sometimes have such special abilities, forcing them to rethink their strategy. The werewolf urges to finish the fight, confident the damage they've inflicted is accumulating. Isis readies her staff, preparing to unleash magic, while another grips their sword tightly, signaling readiness to strike. Suddenly, Isis cries out as her magical barrier shatters, causing alarm among the group. The werewolf lunges forward aggressively, breaking through their defenses. Wulru and Isis collapse against a cracked wall, exhausted and injured. A large bird-like creature calls out urgently, followed by the werewolf responding fiercely, signaling a tense standoff. The bird-like creature commands everyone to take action as it leaps forward. Wulru stands, gripping his sword uncertainly, contemplating his next move while the werewolf advances, ready for the next clash. The demon's sword he repaired holds a hidden power, and if he can release it, it might turn the tide. He grips the sword tightly, eyes wide with determination. He calls out to Sasha, asking her to buy him some time. She reacts in shock, questioning if he means to face that monstrous foe alone. Sasha demands if he has a plan, her gaze sharp and expectant. He nods silently, and she reluctantly agrees to trust him. As she prepares to engage, she warns him he better pay well for this favor. The werewolf roars fiercely, charging at Sasha. She taunts the beast, trying to lure it away with swift movements and sharp commands. She struggles to pin it down, dodging its powerful attacks while clutching a small object tightly. The wolf snarls, relentless and aggressive, but she refuses to give ground. She switches tactics, aiming a poison arrow at the beast. She questions if the creature has resistance as the arrow fails to affect it. The werewolf snarls in pain but remains standing. Teresa urgently shouts for Sasha to get down, sensing the danger escalating. The demon sword's hidden power ignites as a fierce energy bursts forth, engulfing the area in a radiant blaze. The young warrior cries out in shock and awe, while an onlooker gasps, recognizing the overwhelming force unleashed. The warrior summons a majestic light god, calling out its name, Aishel, as the divine figure materializes with a roar. Ready to aid in the battle, nearby, the werewolf growls fiercely, bracing for the incoming confrontation. The summoned light god swings its massive weapon with tremendous force, clashing against the werewolf in a dazzling display of power. the warrior stands firm behind the divine protector, directing the assault. The impact of the light god's attack shatters the stone wall behind the werewolf, leaving a massive crack. The trio watches in stunned silence, overwhelmed by the sheer power displayed. The group collapses from exhaustion, relieved they somehow defeated their foe. One admits his strength is gone, while another reassures him it's natural to be drained after such power. The light god sits nearby, weary but safe. The archer laments her magic is depleted along with all her special arrows. Despite this, one smiles, admitting he truly thought they wouldn't survive. A large dragon-like creature gently calls out, and the exhausted group turns their attention to it. The young man laughs softly, congratulating everyone on a job well done. The scene shifts to a grand mansion where a noblewoman expresses deep gratitude to the young man named Yahello. She asks for a favor, requesting he deliver something to the king, her son. Quickly, she reveals she has been considering how to properly reward him. Inside an elegant room, the noblewoman offers Yahello a title in their kingdom, allowing him to return to the nobility. Yahello reacts with surprise and gratitude, thanking her sincerely as she watches him with a hopeful expression. The young man admits he prefers his current life and doesn't want to return to being a noble. The noblewoman smiles knowingly. Having expected his answer, he sits quietly, asking her to contact him if anything happens. Meanwhile, a small figure apologizes and requests that the mansion and her identity remain a secret, promising the reward money will be delivered later. The young man thanks her sincerely. The noblewoman assures him that both her kingdom and herself will support him. Outside, he waves goodbye, expressing gratitude to everyone as a carriage waits nearby. A woman named Sylvia appears, inviting the group to the garden where everything is ready. The young man acknowledges her, and the group gathers outside the mansion. She calls out to Isis, Nir, Wulru, Sasha, and Yahello, asking if they have heard anything after being summoned suddenly. They all respond with no. The group is called together by Sylvia, who greets everyone warmly. Their expressions brighten with excitement. A feast is laid out on a table, and congratulations are offered for clearing the 20th floor. The group gathers around a table, eager to share their joint preparations and stories. One insists on hearing everything, emphasizing their collective effort. A woman expresses excitement about Sasha's upcoming welcome party and looks forward to working with her. Sasha shyly denies living with them, but admits she wants to keep fighting strong enemies. Nearby, others chat happily, enjoying the moment. As night falls, the group stands together again, raising their glasses in a toast. They cheer each other on, celebrating their achievements with heartfelt congratulations. The scene fades into a peaceful night sky filled with stars. The setting shifts to a grand castle and a garden gazebo where a queen and her attendants converse. The queen reflects on the eldest son of the Belbalat family, Dalmas, noting his exile despite his skill. She praises him as a great help and an adventurer with a wonderful skill, capable of conquering dungeons. The king contemplates aloud, acknowledging that such a person must be remarkable. He mutters to himself about someone who might be able to make something important. Meanwhile, a young man named Yahello Belbalat laughs warmly, expressing his growing interest in meeting this notable figure. A warning appears, revealing that information about Yahello has leaked to the royal network, questioning the intentions of those watching him. A young girl urgently calls out to Yahello, telling him to come quickly because Corin is in trouble. Inside a grand room, Yahello looks up from his tea, surprised by the sudden alarm. A majestic winged horse, Corin, stands proudly in the room as the girl excitedly cheers. Yahello remarks on how much Corin has grown, noting it's impossible to keep him inside the house. The girl asks Corin to give Vivi a ride, and Corin leaps energetically. Outside, Wulru is called over as the girl announces Corin's large growth. Wulru and Ru, a dragon-like creature, face each other with surprise. Yahello reflects that this is their first meeting since Wulru grew larger, and hopes the two different species won't fight. Ru and Wulru happily interact, with Ru exclaiming in surprise. The two creatures playfully approach each other, and Yahello watches with a smile, concluding that they will be fine. A young girl asks Yahello if he plans to take Corin to the dungeon as well. He replies that it depends on Corin's motivation but admits there's another problem. Rumors of their clearing the 20th floor have spread among adventurers, drawing many others to Guardia. Yahello reflects that this was somewhat expected. Outside, two adventurers excitedly recognize Yahello and his party, amazed to see a dragon and asking if they are the ones who cleared the 20th floor. Yahello feels awkward, knowing their quiet frontier life could be disrupted. He worries about drawing attention from the influential Belbalat family, as their dungeon earnings are vital for their livelihood. Inside a room, Yahello confides that this situation is a problem. A woman asks if something is bothering him, and he mentions two mercenaries, Isis and Nir, who might have useful information due to their extensive travels. Seated together, they discuss other good dungeons. Aishel asks if there are any dungeons they can visit quietly and return from easily. Isis explains that Guardia is the only dungeon in the kingdom. When Aishel suggests the Tower of the Sky, the others react with surprise and curiosity. A dungeon stands tall in the neighboring Ability Kingdom, surrounded by wilderness. It's called the Tower of the Sky, located in a very remote area where few people venture. Rumors about it won't spread back home quickly. The lack of visitors isn't just because of its remoteness, prompting a question about the real reason. The answer reveals the dungeon has over 100 floors, making it extremely difficult to clear. Despite this, they believe decent loot can be obtained without reaching the upper floors. Confident, they decide to try the Tower of the Sky the next day. Inside the dungeon, water floods the floor, and many water-type monsters inhabit the area. The group notices this and realizes that Woolroo's water attribute attacks won't be effective here. Roo considers this challenge as he prepares for what lies ahead. Korin, riding a unicorn-like creature, appears nervous. The rider advises Korin not to push himself too hard since this is his first dungeon. The tension is palpable as they prepare to face the unknown within the Tower of the Sky. Roo stands cautiously in the flooded dungeon corridor as a swarm of water creatures approaches. He braces himself, electricity crackling around him, ready to confront the incoming monsters. The creatures leap toward him, initiating the battle. Observing from a distance, Sasha, Korin, and Woolroo watch the fight unfold. Impressed by Roo's strength, they resolve not to be outdone and prepare to join the fray. Nearby, valuable loot sparkles. Items unfamiliar to them, likely worth a high price. Roo examines a monster egg found among the loot, debating whether to sell it or keep it. Deciding to watch over it for a while, he notes Korin and Woolroo's curiosity about the egg. Suddenly, a commotion erupts elsewhere, signaling something unexpected. She rushes to a room where he finds Sylvia and another woman admiring a small, adorable creature. Shocked, he calls out to Sylvia, concerned for her well-being, but the two are captivated by the cuteness before them. Aishel greets a young man warmly as he enters, who nervously returns the greeting while eyeing a small, fluffy creature. She explains the creature was wandering the living room when she tried to prepare breakfast. Nearby, two others discuss the monster egg having hatched, identifying the species as likely a Fenrir. The group complains that Sylvia is hogging the creature, each wanting to fluff it a little. The young man insists the Fenrir is still a baby and would be harmed if handled roughly, so he plans to keep it in his room for a while. The others protest, accusing him of wanting to keep all the cuteness to himself. He offers a compromise. They can decide the creature's name. Excited, they agree to give it a cute name as he carries the Fenrir away. In a kitchen, the young man prepares a bottle, carefully checking the temperature before offering milk to the happy Fenrir, who responds with a joyful bark. Sitting down, he feeds the Fenrir slowly, advising it not to rush. He reflects on why Sylvia and the others reacted so strongly to the creature, watching as the Fenrir drinks contentedly, its small paws resting on the floor while the sky outside brightens. The Fenrir puppy pads softly across the floor, then curls up peacefully, its eyes closed in contentment. It stretches happily, surrounded by a gentle aura of flowers, radiating pure cuteness. The young man asks if they've decided on a name, and a woman confirms it's Mayupa. He agrees the name sounds good, smiling warmly. Suddenly, they realize Mayupa has disappeared, sparking alarm and surprise. The puppy's barks echo as the young man notices it has slipped outside. Panic rises as he rushes out the door, worried Mayupa might get lost. Outside, a regal figure with a crown warmly greets Mayupa, calling it cute. The young man thanks the figure nervously and asks their name. The figure introduces themselves as Justbility, a name that rings a faint bell in the young man's memory. A regal man wearing a crown announces he is the current king of the Ability Kingdom, surprising the young man holding Mayupa. The young man stammers in shock, recognizing the gravity of the encounter as Mayupa happily barks. The young man explains he heard stories from Lady Teresa and has come to ask a favor. The king gently scolds Lady Teresa for revealing secrets, but admits he pried the information from her himself. He expresses gratitude and mentions his friendship with the king of Rose-Free despite their age difference. The king thanks the young man for saving someone's life and requests a favor based on his production skills. They sit in a grand room as the king prepares to discuss the main topic. The young man questions the nature of the production skills requested. The king reveals his request. He wants the young man to craft the sacred sword of the Ability Kingdom. The young man confirms the request, realizing the next task is to create a national treasure. The young man questions the king about the treasured sword. The king confirms its name is Durand of the Divine Mist and Ice. He explains that before long, he must abdicate the throne, and that a ceremony called the Rite of Succession will pass the national treasure sword to the next king. However, the treasured sword was stolen 3 days ago. The king's men report that the sword was taken out of the country and that although they found the culprit, the fiend escaped quickly. The young man asks if the ceremony can be postponed. But the king insists it cannot be delayed, having already sent invitations to other kings. The king then urgently pleads with the young man, Sir Aishiru, to forge the treasured sword using his production skill. The king, with a serious expression, says it is his precious son's big day and he wants the ceremony to end without incident. The young man promises to try everything he can. The king then reveals he has one condition, catching the young man's full attention. The young man declares he wants to borrow everyone's help, admitting he could not have overcome all hardships or fulfilled Lady Teresa's requests alone. The king explains that the treasured sword Durand was originally an ordinary sword forged by the first king and his companions during their adventures. He would have preferred to keep this quiet but acknowledges it fits the sword's origin. Finally, he entrusts the task fully to Sir Aishiru. The young man explains the situation, admitting he doesn't know how to forge the treasured sword but wants to help because the king is in trouble. A woman questions if he can even make such a sword. Noting it sounds difficult, he acknowledges the challenge, saying it won't be straightforward since it's a treasured sword, but ultimately confesses he doesn't know how to make it. The king reveals the truth. No one knows how the sword is made or what materials it requires. The sword originally belonged to the first king at Bailitai's founding and was used only as a symbol during ceremonies. Records say it had an ice attribute and could cut down 100 men in one swing. It supposedly used a rare gemstone called a mist gem, but its location is unknown. The king laments that their country has very few adventurers and guilds, making it hard to gather information. The young man explains why he sought help from someone from another country. They face difficulty collecting information because all sources are small in scale. The young man worries if they can really make the sword under these conditions. But the woman beside him encourages him, promising to help. The group resolves to work together, each offering to assist. One will ask adventurer acquaintances for information. Another will check on the mist gem, and others will help review the materials. The woman cheerfully promises to cook meals from her kills and urges everyone to speak up if they need a break. The young man expresses heartfelt thanks to everyone for their support. Determined, the young man decides to level up his bladesmith skill. Finally reaching level 3, he contemplates producing the legendary sword, Divine Mist and Ice, by adding a mist attribute to an ice attribute sword using a mist gem. However, he lacks any skill that can grant attributes to items. He realizes he's out of materials and notices the workshop is already dark, despite his bladesmith level increasing. No suitable skill has appeared yet, leaving him uncertain if he can succeed. Resigned, he decides to take a break. Upon returning, he finds late-night snacks and additional enhancement materials left for him by his friends, who encourage him to do his best. He reflects on how everyone trusts and supports him, doing everything they can to help. Bolstered by their faith, he raises his fist with renewed resolve. Confident and motivated, suddenly, he discovers the skill, Transmutation, which can grant attributes to items, marking a breakthrough in his quest. The young man notices Sasha approaching with a mischievous grin. She holds out her hand and asks him to guess what she has, revealing a shining mist gem. She explains she found it long ago in a dungeon but never picked it up because she wasn't interested in drop items then. He thanks her, relieved at the perfect timing. The group struggles with their deadline, frustrated by the lack of fitting materials. One member gathers various weapons that might serve as crafting materials, but they realize none match the legendary sword's description exactly. They spot a sword resembling the illustration in the texts but note subtle differences. Examining the sword, they identify it as the Irina Strike, an ice attribute sword with high attack power, but it doesn't require a mist gem for crafting and doesn't feel like the treasured sword they seek. The group acknowledges this is a problem, but one member, Bibi, excitedly raises her hand, declaring she has an idea. Bibi enthusiastically suggests that mixing something tasty with something else tasty makes it even better. Comparing it to cooking, another member gently reminds her they aren't talking about cooking. But the idea sparks interest. The group considers that combining elements might strengthen the sword, and the young man agrees it might not be a bad idea, turning to ask Isis for her thoughts. The Irina Strike sword has reached its enhancement limit, normally impossible to strengthen further. Yet, with Aishiru's exceptional production skills, a new enhancement path emerges. His sharp observation reveals there is still a way to upgrade the sword beyond its max level. Eager to test this, the young man uses transmutation to fuse the mist gem with Irina Strike, naming the new form, Heavenly Divine Mist Ice Irina Crash. The sword glows with power, and everyone marvels as its strength visibly increases. Despite the upgrade, the blade still falls short of the legendary Durand. a sword with both ice and mist attributes and far superior stats. The young man admits his skills can't push the sword any further and wonders what to do next. A woman nearby notices and calls his attention. She urges him not to lose hope and shows him a passage in an ancient tome. The text describes a sword that cut down countless foes and shone with light, hinting at a deeper secret to unlocking the sword's true potential. A woman explains that weapons gain experience and evolve not only through smithing enhancements but also by being used in battle, with the same applying to magic. The young man recalls the king saying the sword was forged through adventures with his companions. He realizes that if they accumulate experience with the arena crash and evolve it, it might become the legendary Durand of the divine mist and ice. The group, energized and determined, acknowledges they have 2 days left. They rally together, ready to head to the Sky Tower, vowing to complete the treasured sword themselves and seize their last chance in the dungeon. A voice calls out to Aishuru, announcing a weakening spell cast on their enemies. Aishuru confidently swings his sword, having already defeated over 100 foes, sensing the moment to strike is near. Suddenly, the sword begins to glow and transform, startling Aishuru as it evolves into the legendary Durand of the divine mist and ice. He and his companions stare in awe at the sword's new form, realizing its true power has awakened. More sea scorpion-like monsters approach relentlessly, prompting Aishuru and his allies to prepare for battle. He commands them to get back as he readies the evolved Durand to face the incoming threat. The overwhelming strength of the sea scorpions is acknowledged by the group, but a confident figure declares without doubt that this is the treasured sword Durand, wielding it with a determined expression as the battle intensifies. The king expresses his gratitude to Aishuru, praising the magnificent achievement that now allows them to safely hold the succession ceremony. He invites Aishuru and his companions to attend as honored guests. Aishuru humbly credits his companions but declines the invitation, saying he can't afford to stand out. The king looks puzzled but amused by the response. Aishuru brings up the Belbarat family, concerned about the danger his friends might face if his true abilities are discovered. The king listens thoughtfully, acknowledging Aishuru's worries and understanding the situation. The king insists that a simple monetary reward isn't enough for all Aishuru has done. He offers to help in any way, urging Aishuru not to hold back because of his royal status. Aishuru is caught off guard by the unexpected offer, especially since the king means anything but the sword. Suddenly, someone calls out to Aishuru, urging him to look. Aishuru turns in surprise as a joyful shout announces Mayupa's presence. The scene shifts to Mayupa happily embracing a large, friendly beast, filling the room with warmth and excitement. Nano reacts with surprise as the king comments on how much Mayupa has grown. A voice scolds someone for running off alone, reminding that Aishuru is in an important conversation. Apologizing to Nano, the speaker explains needing to take Mayupa back to the ranch and prepare everyone's meals. The king acknowledges this and then calmly states he has one request. A woman named Lily introduces herself, explaining she has come under orders from the king of Bailitai to work here starting today. She stands formally as the others listen. Lily is asked to help lighten the heavier load caused by taking care of monsters and housework. Nano smiles warmly, expressing trust and counting on Lily. Lily accepts the responsibility with a bow. Suddenly, a bark startles them, and Nano scolds Mayupa for sneaking out of the ranch again. Lily apologizes for the surprise but assures it's fine. He tells Lily he'll get to work as she walks away. The scene shifts to Lily cleaning the room meticulously, dusting and sweeping with care, settling into her new role. Aishuru is surprised to find Lily already finished with her cleaning. She asks if she can handle cleaning the other rooms too, and though hesitant, he agrees. Both he and another man hope they can get along well with her, noting how serious she is. Sylvia returns home, greeted warmly. She and Aishuru marvel at Lily's help, praising her for not only cleaning but also preparing dinner, which allows them to finally relax. Aishuru shows Sylvia a new magic TV, explaining how rare information is in their remote location. Aishuru reflects as he prepares to visit the Guardianites. He listens to a woman describe Sir Dalmas, the eldest son of the prestigious Belbarat family, who has achieved great military success. Shocked, Aishuru realizes Dalmas is actually his younger brother and wonders if they are pretending he never existed. Inside the Guardianites' hall, Sir Dalmas enthusiastically declares his intent to reform the Knights' Order. Rejecting their noble supremacist stance, he insists that capability, not status, should determine one's place, seeking support from those around him, including the woman beside him and Aishuru, who listens intently. The broadcast proclaims the Guardianites as the greatest order in the world, inviting capable individuals to join regardless of status. Even slaves. A woman praises this inclusive stance as wonderful, while the young man reacts with shock. The scene shifts back to the room where the young man and a woman watch the program, the woman nervously clutching a cloth as the young man calls for the next segment. The young man scoffs at the claim of equality, recalling how a knight once threatened Sylvia with a sword, warning slaves not to defy their superiors. He dismisses the notion of equality as a lie, noting rumors that slaves who join the knights are treated terribly and often run away. He expresses relief that they severed ties with such people. The young man reflects on his own path, wondering if he would have ended up like Dalmas had he inherited the family's desired skills instead of a production skill. A girl suddenly hugs him tightly, prompting a surprised reaction. She reassures him, saying he has their support and there's no need for a scared expression. He thanks her warmly. The woman excitedly remembers she needs to thank Lily, wondering where she is. The young man praises Lily's hard work, suggesting they throw her a welcome party. The woman notes Lily's constant expressionlessness and lack of smiles, wondering if she truly likes it there. The young man hopes that's not the case as they sit together in the room. He recalls seeing Lily heading over to Wool and the others earlier, wondering if she was just feeding them dinner. Concern grows as he realizes it might be too late for that. He contemplates that even if it was the king's command to suddenly work in another country, Lily must have had her own feelings about it. He fears she might be thinking she can't stay in a place like this any longer and calls out to her. Lily embraces the fluffy white lion warmly, marveling at how soft and fluffy it is. She gushes over how adorable they all are, especially Mayupa, whom she's been dying to pet since first seeing. Aisharu rushes in, calling out to her, while the lion happily barks. She, blushing, apologizes for her embarrassment. She admits she was nervous because she heard from the king of Bailitai that Lord Aisharu is an amazing person. The young man encourages her to relax, reminding her they all live under the same roof as companions. She listens quietly, touched by his kindness. She agrees she's been a little too tense and promises to take it easier from now on. Aisharu mentions Sylvia's plan to hold a welcome party, expressing his happiness at the chance to talk more with everyone. The scene fades to night as cloaked figures run through the forest nearby. Two cloaked figures scan their surroundings, confirming there are no pursuers and noting the enemy barely bothered to post any guards. A young man reacts with surprise, commenting on the idea of equal treatment for slaves. He explains that some knights drunkenly revealed Dalmas has an older brother. Another figure asks what the plan is now, and the young man reveals he has an idea. Inside a lavish room, a group discusses the rumored oddball living in the frontier with slaves, saying the treatment there isn't bad. One person suggests that if it's really Aisharu Belbarat, he might be willing to help them. The scene closes on the group looking toward a grand building as they contemplate what these visitors might bring to their peaceful home. A woman notices the late hour and questions if there are guests. Two men sit quietly in a room. Acknowledging it is already nighttime, a young man stands, determined to check the visitors outside. He is warned to be careful but confidently heads to the door. His foot steps onto a glowing magic circle, activating a teleportation spell. Outside, cloaked figures appear suddenly at the gate, startling the young man as he arrives. The cloaked visitors look nervous and surprised, caught off guard by their sudden arrival. The young man explains the magic doorbell warps anyone instantly from the front door to the gate. He asks the visitors who they are, while they stammer in response, clearly uneasy. The visitors explain they are traveling merchants whose wagon broke down, leaving them stranded. The young man observes they don't seem like ordinary merchants but acknowledges they appear to be in genuine trouble. He invites them inside despite the late hour, sensing their need for help. Inside, the young man reassures the visitors that they should help each other in times of trouble. One visitor hesitates, but he insists warmly. The group sits together in a cozy room, where a woman offers snacks and asks if they would like some. The visitors are surprised but accept, being welcomed as guests. The woman nervously asks if they are truly guests, but a sudden defensive spell cuts her off. A determined figure named Nir appears, demanding to know who they are and what they want. Another explains they searched outside with Wool and found no wagon. A tied-up man named Jiraiya is recognized, heightening tension. Jiraiya reveals they once belonged to the Guardia Knights, surprising the young man. The group admits they ran away, unwilling to remain in such a place. Their expressions show pain and regret as they explain their escape. The group urgently pleads with Aisharu to hide them, revealing they are former slaves who joined the Guardia Knights after hearing they accepted slaves. Aisharu and the others question if they were merely scapegoats for others' frustrations, confirming the harsh truth. The group recounts the brutal bullying they endured daily. Violence, insults, starvation, and forced chores. While nobles enjoyed comfort, one reflects bitterly that even life at the slave house was better than the torment they faced as knights. They explain that even if they wanted to return to the slave house, escaping the knights made that impossible. Rumors spread among the knights that Commander Dalmas has an older brother who treats slaves as equals. The young man reveals he is a former slave too and credits Aisharu for saving him from a grim fate. The group earnestly pleads for shelter, offering to fight or do chores in exchange. Their sincerity is clear, but suspicion lingers that Dalmas might have sent them as spies. Aishiru warns that showing up at this hour is suspicious and the rumor they heard may not be true. If they refuse to hide the group, they threaten to report everything to the knights. They note that the Belbarat family officially recognizes Dalmas as their eldest son and wants to keep the young man's existence secret. Though Dalmas may look down on him now, his growing strength and influence could change that. The young man reacts in shock as Aishiru reveals the Belbarat family is obsessed with rank and honor. Fearing exposure of the true eldest son, they might erase him if they feel threatened, or drag him back home as a useful asset. The young man declares that the warning is a threat, insisting they cannot continue living as before. He urges Jiraiya not to back down, determined to prevent more suffering for the three others. Jiraiya winces but refuses to yield to the threat. A woman confronts the group, noting there are only 4 of them and questioning if they truly believe they can defeat her and her allies. The group stands firm, vowing not to hold back if their friends are harmed. The young man pleads for calm as tensions rise. Sylvia sternly warns she won't allow a mess, reminding them that Lily just finished cleaning. She commands the 3 others to calm down, forcibly feeding a reluctant Dahlia something to settle her nerves. Dahlia is shocked but complies, muffled as she eats. Tears well up in Dahlia's eyes as she admits the food is delicious. The woman smiles, teasing if it's good enough to cry over. The young man reflects that since joining the knights, the others haven't had a proper meal, highlighting their hardships. She brightens, suggesting they talk things over while enjoying the meal laid out before them. The others exchange glances, one wondering how she can be so carefree. But she insists they speak as they eat, inviting them to ask if it's not enough. Warm food delights them, with one expressing disbelief at having such a good meal after so long. The young man notices the bruises and cuts covering their bodies, realizing how much they've endured. He quietly tells them that once they finish eating, they can proceed with what they need to do. He encourages them to start by choosing their rooms to sleep in from now on. The group marvels at the many rooms available, struggling to decide. The woman assures them there are plenty of rooms to spare, and everyone will be happier with the livelier atmosphere. She jokes about waking up to find 4 new housemates, wondering how to explain that. The young man apologizes to Jiraiya for earlier and confirms his name. He acknowledges that Jiraiya acted for the sake of the others, recalling how the 4 have been together since their days at the slave house. It began with silly little chats, gradually turning into talks about their lives and themselves. One asks if they all have dreams, and another wishes to live in a big house. A third demands 3 meals a day, no tasteless bread. The young man clenches his fist, declaring that someday they will escape and live free. He recalls how recruiters from Dalmas's knights came to their house seeking new members, supposedly accepting anyone, even slaves. He urges that this must be their chance to climb from the bottom together, earn money, live well, and be happy. Yet, a shadow of doubt crosses their faces, knowing it was all a lie. The young man admits fault for the suffering endured by the 3 others. He begs to take all the blame and punishment upon himself, vowing to work for all of them, even more than that. A woman comforts him, telling him it's not his fault. She reminds him that joining the knights and following him was their choice. The young man points out that Dalmas is the one at fault, promising to guarantee food, clothes, and shelter for them all, though he hesitates before continuing. A young man cheerfully assigns tasks to the group, telling them they will be busy tending fields, exploring dungeons, caring for monsters, and cleaning the house starting tomorrow. The others respond with eager agreement. Meanwhile, a man in armor dismisses the runaway slaves, saying they have nowhere to go. 2 soldiers speculate about a man rumored to live with slaves, wondering if it could be Aishiru. 2 armored soldiers burst into a room, startled and fearful. As one demands they never mention a certain name again, the scene shifts to a close-up of a man glaring fiercely, calling that person a disgrace to the Belbarat name. A caption notes the widening gap in reputation between 2 brothers, revealing that Aishiru is the one who possesses the qualities of a true rifle leader. A week has passed since Jiraiya and the others arrived. A young man offers snacks cheerfully, but the woman declines politely, smiling nervously. He reflects on wanting them to feel at ease, yet senses an invisible barrier remains. Given their past hardships, he wonders what to do next. Returning home, the group greets each other warmly. They discuss the day's work, noting the drops were stingy, but they did manage to get a monster egg. Curiosity grows about what will hatch from it. One woman notices a paper and asks about it. The paper turns out to be request forms from the town's request office. They explain these forms list townspeople's problems, offering rewards based on quest difficulty. The young man worries increased workload might strain everyone, but the woman counters, showing the generous rewards and asking if he can still object after seeing them. Surprised by the amounts, the young man learns some requests are non-combat, like one from the weapon shop and another from the material shop. They all pay well. The woman volunteers to handle one request alone, while a man offers to deliver vegetables to town, noting they have extras anyway. They acknowledge that income from dungeons is unpredictable, so taking requests could provide steady earnings. One suggests posting request forms on a board in the room, letting everyone pick what suits them. The idea includes a place to gather and store reward money, plus a spot to check delivery items. A woman proposes making a guild room to store request items and put up the board. She adds that a box for reward money would help Aishiru track income. Everyone agrees enthusiastically to build the guild room. A leader outlines the plan and asks for help. People agree to assist with the guild room construction starting today. One reminds a newcomer that carpentry will be rough but counts on their effort, while the newcomer is encouraged by the support. Inside the new room, two work on preparations. One asks the other to inspect their work, impressed by their natural skill despite it being their first time. The other reassures them, urging them to keep it up without worry. A young man is surprised and grateful, admitting no one has ever said anything encouraging to him before. Another tells him to have more confidence, teasing that he must have been surrounded by scary people. The young man promises to do his best, determined not to be outdone by Saku. A group watches, resolved to keep up, and a smiling woman notes they seem to be genuinely enjoying themselves. Outside, a worker asks Aishiru if there is any wood left. Aishiru confirms they've run out, as the leftover wood came from wool and others' houses and fields. The young man eagerly volunteers to go get more wood, and others quickly join him, noting how rare it is to see Saku so dedicated to work. Inside, a woman looks out the window, worried because 4 people are taking a long time to return. The young man reviews a list, confirming they headed toward the back hill, which becomes dangerous after dark. He fears the Dalmas Knights might discover their escape and attack. Anxiety builds as he decides to go after them himself. Calling out to Jiraiya, Dahlia, Nina, and Saku, the young man rushes into the forest. He gasps for breath but asks if everyone is okay. Then, he is stunned to find a large pile of wood stacked neatly, clearly the result of their hard work. The group explains they gathered a large amount of wood, expecting to use it heavily beyond just the guild room. They admit they couldn't carry it all back themselves and apologize. The young man smiles warmly, assuring them it's no problem at all. Praising their effort, the woman notes how much wood they collected. The young man assigns Bibi the smaller logs while another offers to handle the big ones. He warns everyone not to overdo it and reminds them to call for help if needed. Carrying a bundle of wood, the young man encourages everyone to give their all, emphasizing their camaraderie. The woman mentions she left dinner halfway to help and plans to ask Aishiru for assistance once the wood is inside. She asks another to take care of the weapons and reinforce them while she's busy. The other protests about being the only one available, overwhelmed by the sudden busyness. Inside a clean, empty room, the group declares their setup complete, but feels the space looks plain. Suddenly, a woman with obscured eyes interrupts, catching their attention. Dahlia nervously suggests making the shared space cozier with curtains, a bookshelf for documents, and a table to sit and rest. She apologizes for possibly overstepping. The others enthusiastically agree, adding a comfy sofa and potted plants to soothe the atmosphere. Dahlia's eyes widen in surprise and gratitude as she thanks them. One of the group takes notes and announces they'll handle the finishing touches, letting everyone else take a break. 2 smile confidently, promising to make the space great. The group reflects on their efforts, admitting nervousness over their first carpentry experience but sharing how much fun it was. The conversation shifts to new roles beyond fighting, encouraging adjustment to other kinds of work. They mention how tired the knights are now. Even more than when fighting, one notices a 3-headed dog, and a young woman turns, curious at the sound of a bark. The 3-headed dog has just hatched from its egg, bringing lively energy to the group. The woman holding the pup is amazed, while others marvel at the creature's presence. A cheerful girl offers to hold the dog, and the woman happily agrees, overwhelmed by the adorable new companion. A woman explains that when Mayupa was born, everyone fought over her, but Aishiru ended up raising her. Another remarks that Mayupa is so cute that one person hogged her all to himself, which seems unfair. They reflect on how monsters are only seen fully grown, and the woman holding 2 puppies marvels at how cute they are as babies. Another person excitedly recalls the first monster born was wool, and the conversation bubbles with lively energy about Mayupa and the others. The group notices that a wall has disappeared, and a young man named Aishiru is addressed. He is asked if he can take care of the little one until it grows up, and he agrees with a warm smile. The woman holding the puppies happily accepts, promising to do her best. Inside a newly finished guild room, a woman announces its completion, crediting Dahlia's ideas for the cozy atmosphere. Another woman offers a tray full of cookies to celebrate. Inviting everyone to dig in, two people share a joyful moment, glad the space turned out so well. A close-up shows someone offering a cookie, followed by a satisfied bite. The woman eating the cookie beams, declaring MS, Sylvia's sweets delicious and expressing her love for them. A woman cheerfully offers a tray of cookies, encouraging everyone to eat as much as they like. The group gathers, and one person reminds them that starting tomorrow, things will get busy again, urging everyone to give their all. The group responds enthusiastically with a unified, "Yeah." The scene ends with a bulletin board filled with various notes, symbolizing the lively and warm atmosphere now present in Aishiru's home as the tension has melted away. A man studies a bulletin board filled with various notices, noting the many kinds of jobs available, from delivering letters to adventurers to transporting vegetables. He reflects on the variety of tasks and the bustling activity. Two people discuss a festival held once a year in St. Leroy, featuring food stalls and a nighttime monster parade. The man reads a letter requesting festival security, pondering the responsibility. Two figures debate whether festival security should be the knight's duty, criticizing Dalmas's leadership as captain and the town's lack of trust in them. The man holding the letter smiles thoughtfully, considering the festival. Plates of food lie untouched as the idea of the festival sinks in. A cheerful girl excitedly declares her desire to attend the festival, admitting she has never been to one since becoming a slave. Others at the table share similar sentiments. The group agrees to take the next day off to enjoy the festival together, their spirits lifted with joyful cheers. The group arrives at a stable, marveling at an impressive carriage, which they recognize as a knight's carriage. The man reacts with surprise and concern upon seeing Dalmas and his knights approaching, calling out his name as tension rises. A knight greets the group warmly, welcoming them to the St. Leroy festival and addressing the slaves among them with surprising kindness. He assures them that all festival security is handled by the Guardia Knights and encourages everyone to enjoy themselves fully. The group exchanges surprised looks, with one remarking on the knight's unexpected friendliness. The girl eagerly urges the others to hurry and join the festivities. The group arrives at the festival, where the girl excitedly points out various stalls. They watch a lively crowd enjoying the event, including a booth advertising a lottery. The atmosphere is festive and inviting, with many people gathered around the stalls. The girl holds a lottery ticket, disappointed by her loss, while the others smile sympathetically. At the lottery booth, the vendor points out the top prize, a doll, and explains that it must be won, not bought. The boy questions the logic, wondering if it wouldn't be easier to just purchase the doll. The woman beside him laughs gently, explaining the fun lies in the challenge of winning. The woman elaborates that the joy of drawing is part of the experience. The girl pleads for one more try, and the boy agrees, suggesting they pick another ticket from the box. The girl beams with excitement, ready to try again, her eyes sparkling with determination. The girl confidently picks a ticket from the box, her heart pounding with anticipation as the others watch nervously. She reveals the number 1 on the ticket and shouts that she hit the jackpot. The group cheers, celebrating her victory with joyful smiles and raised hands. The vendor hands over the prize doll with a warm smile, congratulating her. The girl beams with pride, showing off the doll she won herself. The others express their happiness and admiration, acknowledging the fun in the challenge. Nearby, a group announces the parade is about to start, and one calls out that they are coming. The crowd gathers, watching a grand parade float adorned with massive statues of various animals, including a wolf, a lion, and a dragon. The festive atmosphere fills the air as the group stands together, captivated by the impressive display. A woman explains that the parade's monsters, a silver wolf, a snow dragon, and a big leopard, are kept under magical control to prevent them from going wild. The group marvels at the spectacle, with the girl excitedly encouraging Wool to try the magic at home, while another smiles, noting it might be a bit tough for him. Two men complain about the parade, one yawning and calling it boring while the other suggests it should be flashier. Suddenly, the magical control over the parade's beasts breaks, and the 3 massive creatures, a wolf, a lion, and a serpent-like dragon, stop moving. Panic erupts among the crowd as a woman realizes the control magic has failed and urgently orders everyone to run. Chaos spreads as townspeople scramble toward the carriages. A young man named Dalmas stands protectively with a sword, shielding a woman behind him. Nearby, a giant wolf growls threateningly, causing a man to plead for someone to take Dalmas away while he tries to distract the beast by pointing to a woman. The wolf lunges at a woman wearing a wide-brimmed hat, who narrowly escapes its attack. Dalmas and the woman behind him catch their breath, and Dalmas asks if everyone is all right. The wolf's presence looms ominously as the woman warns that if the beasts rampage through the town, it will be disastrous. A group of armed fighters, including a woman wielding a chain weapon, prepare to confront the rampaging monsters. They agree they cannot leave the situation to the guards alone and must act. One of them questions if it's really okay to defeat the beasts, who are from the battle hall, but another insists they are likely just agitated and suggests weakening and capturing them. A determined woman with a staff volunteers to handle the binding magic needed to subdue the creatures. A group of fighters stands ready, surrounded by various beasts including a bear, a wolf, and a dragon-like creature. A woman with a staff channels magical energy, flames swirling around her as she casts a binding spell. The beasts gradually calm, their eyes closing peacefully under the magic's influence. A grateful man clasps his hands, overwhelmed with thanks, explaining the beasts went wild because the magic device controlling them broke, showing the shattered crystals. Nearby, a woman thanks another for earlier help, confirming she's unharmed after the chaos. A tense conversation unfolds as a young man, flanked by others, accuses someone of interfering with the control magic out of boredom. The accused remains silent, while the accuser angrily demands an explanation, calling him a useless idiot. The young man lashes out, condemning the accused for pushing people aside to escape and calling the knight's security pathetic. Despite protests, the accuser declares his noble lineage and lashes out at commoners, prompting a companion to urge Lord Dalmas to withdraw. Another watches on, noting Dalmas remains unchanged. A young man urges everyone to leave before they attract attention, reminding them things have calmed down. A woman calls out to Aishiru, relieved he is safe. Aishiru confirms he is fine despite being caught in the crowd. Apologies are exchanged as they prepare to part ways. The man in the hat reflects on the chaos, admitting they shouldn't have come to a country at war. The woman beside him insists it was worth it. They recognize Aishiru Belbarat as someone valuable they want for their country, determined to prevent rival nations from recruiting him first. A narration explains the monster rampage at the St. Lurua festival ended without injuries and all monsters were captured. Two people wonder why the knights only watched as the chaos unfolded, noting Captain Dalmas used a woman as a shield and fled. The man in the vest praises the bravery of the strangers who stopped the commotion, curious about their identities. It is announced Captain Dalmas will be demoted to vice captain. Back at Aishiru's residence, a maid informs him of visitors, and he resolves to work hard after the previous day's excitement. Aishiru notices familiar faces approaching, including a king and his entourage, who insist Aishiru is coming to their country. He nervously questions what is happening as the situation grows more complicated, realizing the problems at his doorstep are far more serious than before.